Give me the keys, Mom. Cal stood in front of Marlene, with one hand open and the other balancing a paper plate of ham biscuits. He still wore the dark suit he'd bought for Glenn's funeral, though he had pulled his tie loose and tucked the tail into his shirt as if the day had officially become practical. Why? Marlene asked. Dad's truck is blocking 2 cars. The whole heavy ring came out of her purse. Apartment, office, laundry, soda machine cabinet, the brass master key, and Glenn's Ford key with the cracked black cover. Cal closed his hand around all of them. You only need the truck key. I know. He put the ring in his pocket. Behind him, relatives moved through the Juniper Motel lobby carrying casseroles, paper cups, and the careful voices people used around a fresh widow. Denise appeared at Marlene's elbow and touched her forearm. You're not driving tonight anyway, she said. Marlene looked from her daughter to her son. Neither looked back long enough for her to ask the question that had begun tightening in her chest. When, exactly, had they decided those keys were no longer hers? Someone had wedged the lobby door open with a concrete turtle Glenn bought at a flea market 20 years earlier. Cool October air slipped in, carrying the smell of wet leaves and exhaust from the highway. Marlene could hear tires humming beyond the bare sycamores, the same steady sound she had fallen asleep to for nearly 3 decades. Aunt Bev approached with an aluminum pan held against her black dress. Honey, where should I put the chicken? Not in the little refrigerator, Marlene said automatically. It's been freezing everything since Tuesday. Use the one in the apartment. Cal was already turning away. Cal, leave me the apartment key. I'll open it. That answer made no sense, but Aunt Bev was still standing there with the chicken, waiting for direction. Marlene led her through the door behind the counter and across the narrow passage to the apartment. On the way, she noticed that someone had shut off the vacancy sign. The red letters in the front window were dark, except for a faint ghost of a "can't see." Glenn had meant to fix the V. He had also meant to reseal the roof over rooms 14 through 18, replace the temperamental water heater, and take Marlene to Savannah for 4 nights once things slowed down. Glenn had possessed an endless supply of future Tuesdays. The apartment smelled of furniture polish and the lilies Denise had brought from the funeral home. 2 women from church had cleared the breakfast dishes and arranged food across every available surface. There were deviled eggs on Glenn's side of the table, 3 containers of potato salad, and a chocolate cake with a thumbprint in the frosting. Aunt Bev lowered her pan. Your people sure do love mayonnaise. They're Southern Baptists, Marlene said. It's one of the sacraments. Bev gave a startled laugh and then covered her mouth, ashamed of making the sound. Marlene was grateful for it. All day people had looked at her as though laughter might crack her open. She moved the chicken into the refrigerator and found a canvas overnight bag on the floor beside the pantry. It was hers, the faded blue one she used when Glenn had appointments in Asheville. A corner of her green nightgown stuck out through the zipper. Who packed that? Bev looked down. I don't know, honey. Marlene opened it. Nightgown, underwear, toothbrush, slippers, 2 blouses, the paperback she had left beside the bed. Her pill organizer lay on top, each little plastic compartment marked with a day. Not morning clothes, traveling clothes. She stood slowly, the bag at her feet. From the lobby came the scrape of folding chairs and Cal's voice telling someone he would handle it. Cal had said that phrase at least a dozen times since Glenn died. He had handled the funeral home deposit. He had handled the flowers. He had handled calling Glenn's cousins in Ohio, though he forgot the one Glenn actually liked. Now, apparently, he was handling her. Marlene walked back toward the lobby. Denise was behind the front desk, stacking sympathy cards into a neat pile. She had changed out of her heels and was wearing white athletic shoes with her black dress, which made her look both younger and more severe. Did you pack my bag? Marlene asked. Denise kept stacking. Just enough for a few days. A few days where? At my house. I didn't say I was going to your house. You shouldn't be alone tonight. I've been alone every night this week. No, you've been here. Denise glanced around the lobby, as though the motel itself counted as company. People have been coming in and out. That stopped being comforting around the 4th tuna casserole. Denise's mouth twitched, but she did not let herself smile. Come home with me. We'll talk tomorrow. This is home. Mama? Denise only called her Mama when she was frightened or trying to win. Marlene had learned the distinction years ago, but today the two sounded almost identical. Cal came in through the open lobby door, rubbing his palms together. Trucks moved. Thank you. Give me my keys. I'm going to hang on to them. The room did not go quiet. It would have been easier if it had. Instead, Cousin Larry asked where the trash bags were. Someone dropped a serving spoon. Bev began wrapping chicken in foil with unnecessary concentration. Marlene held out her hand. Cal, we don't need to do this right now. We don't need to do anything. You need to put my keys in my hand. His jaw shifted. He had Glenn's broad shoulders and Marlene's habit of looking at the floor when cornered. At 43, Cal could make a room full of walnut cabinets look expensive and a simple apology look physically impossible. You're exhausted, he said. You haven't slept. You nearly fell at the cemetery. My heel went into mud. You grabbed the casket. I was trying not to knock your father into the next county. Aunt Bev made another strangled sound. Cal's face flushed. Denise stepped between them without quite stepping between them. Mom, please. Not here. Marlene looked around. Every person in the lobby had discovered an urgent task. Her sister-in-law was wiping a counter that was already clean. Larry stood with a trash bag open but had put nothing in it. Their politeness formed a wall around Cal and Denise, making Marlene the rude one if she pushed through. She lowered her hand. Fine, she said. After everybody leaves. Cal exhaled, relieved. That hurt more than the refusal. The gathering thinned over the next hour. People hugged Marlene, pressed soft envelopes into her palm, and told her Glenn was in a better place. She thanked them without asking how they knew. A former guest named Mr. Waller stopped by in a denim jacket and left a gas station coffee on the counter because he remembered she took hers black. It was already cold, but she drank it anyway. Outside, Cal loaded food into Denise's SUV. He put Marlene's overnight bag in the back without asking. Marlene began returning the lobby to order. She straightened the rack of local brochures, carried cups to the sink, and lifted the concrete turtle away from the door. Cold air had settled into the room. When she tried the office knob, it did not turn. Cal. He was coming in for the last pan of macaroni. What? Why is the office locked? I locked up. There are 3 guests staying tonight. 2. Mr. Jacobs checked out. Room 7 is still paid through Friday whether he sleeps in it or not. And Harold Boone will need his receipt at 6 in the morning. I put a note on the door. The note was written on one of the Juniper's green message slips. Office closed. Call number below. The number was Cal's. Marlene read it twice. You put your phone number on my office, just for tonight. You don't know how to reset the breaker if room 3 uses the microwave and hair dryer together. Then, room 3 can live dangerously. It was the sort of line Glenn might have used, dry and foolish enough to make her laugh despite herself. On Cal, it landed differently. He was trying to sound relaxed because he had done something he knew she would hate. Denise came in carrying Marlene's coat. Instead of handing it to her, she held it open. We should go. I'll sleep in my own bed. No, Cal said. That single word changed the temperature of the room. Marlene turned to him. You want to try that again? He ran a hand over his hair. The apartment door's locked. Everything's secured. Come back tomorrow when you're rested, then unlock it. We're trying to make this easier. For who? Denise moved closer. Her face had gone pale beneath her makeup. I cannot leave you here alone the night we bury Dad. There it was. Not command, not quite. Fear. Marlene could have fought harder. She could have demanded the keys in front of the last few relatives or called a locksmith while Cal stood there. She knew the motel's locks better than either of them. The office window above the air conditioner had not latched properly since spring, but Glenn's framed photograph was still on the lobby table, smiling beside a spray of yellow roses. Marlene caught sight of it and felt the day drop onto her all at once. The church, the damp cemetery, the empty passenger seat in the funeral car, the bewildering fact that Glenn's shoes were still under their bed while Glenn was not. She let Denise put the coat around her shoulders. Tomorrow morning, she said to Cal. Yes, ma'am, my keys. We'll talk. That wasn't what I said. He picked up the macaroni and looked away. Denise's house was 22 minutes from the Juniper if traffic was light. Marlene knew because Denise had announced every turn during the drive, as if her mother had never traveled those roads. Cal followed in Glenn's truck. Seeing its familiar headlights in the side mirror made Marlene turn around twice. At Denise's, her bag had already been placed in the guest room. The sheets smelled sharply of lavender detergent. A glass of water waited beside the bed, along with a packet of tissues and a phone charger that did not fit Marlene's phone. Do you want tea? Denise asked. No. Toast? I've eaten enough funeral food to preserve me until Christmas. Denise stood in the doorway. Without her funeral shoes and with her hair falling out of its pins, she looked less like a jailer and more like a tired daughter who had chosen the wrong solution and did not know how to back out of it. "Try to sleep," she said. Marlene changed into the green nightgown someone else had chosen for her. When she opened the pill organizer, she found the compartments full. She had already taken Thursday morning's tablets. Whoever packed it had refilled the empty slot. Downstairs, a cabinet door closed. Then Cal's voice rose through the vent. "She can't stay out there by herself." Denise answered too quietly for Marlene to make out the words. Cal said, "The buyer won't wait forever." Marlene sat on the edge of the guest bed, the plastic pillbox in her hand. For years, both of them had called the Juniper a burden. They had rolled their eyes at the leaking gutters, the late-night guests, the towels Marlene refused to replace until they were thin enough to read through. Glenn had offered them the motel when he first talked about retirement. Cal had laughed. Denise had said she would rather work double shifts for the rest of her life. Now Glenn had been in the ground less than 4 hours, and they had a buyer. Marlene set the pill organizer on the nightstand. She took her phone from her purse and found Alma Ruiz's number. "Are you awake?" she typed. The reply came before she could put on her glasses. "For you? Unfortunately." Marlene looked toward the closed bedroom door. "Can you pick me up at 7? 3 dots appeared, vanished, and appeared again. "Where are we going?" Marlene listened to Cal and Denise discussing her future downstairs. "Home," she wrote. At 6:43, Marlene was dressed and sitting on the edge of the guest bed with her overnight bag zipped at her feet. She had slept perhaps 40 minutes. The rest of the night had been taken up by pipes ticking in Denise's walls and the blue light of the clock changing 1 minute at a time. Somewhere around 4, she had discovered a porcelain angel on the dresser, watching her with an expression of personal concern. Marlene turned it toward the wall. Downstairs, the coffee maker clicked on automatically. She carried her bag into the hall. Denise was already in the kitchen, barefoot in gray sweatpants, watching dark coffee run into the pot. She took in Marlene's clothes and bag without surprise. "You called Alma." "Yes." "You could have called me. I was in your house." "That's not what I mean." Marlene put her bag beside the front door. Through the narrow window, dawn showed as a pale gray strip over the neighboring roofs. "Where are my keys?" "Cal has them." "Where is Cal?" "He went home, in my truck." Denise poured coffee too soon. The stream sputtered against her mug and dotted the counter. She wiped it with her sleeve. "He was going to bring it back today." Was that before or after he met with the buyer? Denise stopped wiping. Marlene had expected denial. What she saw instead was weariness, which was worse. "You heard us," Denise said. "The heating vent works better than the telephone. We weren't keeping anything from you. You packed my underwear and locked me out of my home. I'd call that keeping a few things. Cal talked to somebody weeks ago. Dad knew. Glenn talked to a dozen people. He talked about selling the motel every February, usually while thawing a pipe. This man is serious. I'm not selling." Denise held the coffee mug with both hands. "You can't decide that today. I can decide where I live today." A car horn gave one short beep outside. Marlene reached for her bag. Denise came around the island and took hold of the strap. "Mom, wait." The tug between them lasted only a second, but the sight of Denise's hand on Marlene's bag made them both still. Denise let go first. "I'm scared," she said. Marlene believed her. That was the trouble? Cruelty would have been easier to answer than love that kept moving her furniture. "I know," Marlene said, "but you don't get to make me scared too." Alma Ruiz drove a red Honda with a dent in the passenger door and 3 air fresheners hanging from the mirror. When Marlene got in, Alma looked at the overnight bag, looked at Denise standing barefoot on the porch, and locked the doors. "She coming after us?" Alma asked. "No. You want me to peel out? Your muffler would fall off. It might be worth it." Alma pulled away at the cautious speed of a woman whose last mechanic had used the phrase "one good pothole." Her silver-streaked hair was twisted into a knot, and she wore a quilted jacket over flowered pajama pants. "You said 7, she told Marlene. "You did not say dressed. I appreciate you coming. You appreciate me now. Last March you said you couldn't afford me." Marlene looked out the window. Alma made a turn. "I'm not saying it to be mean. You never have to explain that part. I'm saying if we're about to break into the Juniper, I want honesty before handcuffs. We're not breaking in. I live there. You lived there yesterday too. People get funny after funerals." The mountains sat dark beyond the roofs, their ridgelines softened by morning mist. They passed the pharmacy, the tire shop, and a diner whose parking lot was already half full. Marlene had driven that road so many times she knew where the pavement dipped, but from Alma's passenger seat, it looked like a route someone else had chosen. At the Juniper, Glenn's truck was not there. Cal's note remained taped to the lobby door. Beneath it, someone had written "Need receipt" in block letters on the back of an envelope and wedged it into the frame. "That'll be Harold," Marlene said. "Harold wakes up mad at 5:30 to get ahead of the day." They found him in front of room 11, wearing work boots and a brown jacket over his reflective vest. He held his room receipt from the previous week like evidence. "Morning, Miss Marlene." His eyes moved to her bag. Cal said the office was closed. "The office is confused. I need this week's receipt for payroll. I'll get it for you." Cal said he'd email one. Cal doesn't know the password. Harold considered that, satisfied. "I figured." The locksmith arrived 20 minutes later in a white van with peak lock key peeling off one side. Eddie Lusk had changed the apartment lock once after Glenn snapped a key in it, and he greeted Marlene with none of the solemn softness she had endured the day before. "Heard about Glenn," he said. "Sorry, thank you." "Which lock?" "All of them." Eddie glanced down the row of green doors. "How mad are we? Give me the price before I answer." The price was $1,860 to open the office and apartment, rekey the exterior locks, and change the guest room cylinders so Cal's brass master would no longer work. Eddie said he could reuse some hardware if it had not corroded. Marlene asked him to repeat the number, though she had heard it. Alma stood beside her with her hands in her jacket pockets. "That's a lot of underwear," Alma said. "What, $1,800? If somebody spent that much locking me out, I'd make them buy me new underwear too." Marlene almost told Eddie to open only the apartment and office. That would get her inside for less than $200. Cal would probably return the keys once tempers cooled. He would say he had never meant to keep them. Denise would apologize in a careful voice. They would explain that changing every lock was wasteful, and they would be right. Then Marlene looked at the brass master in her mind, resting in Cal's pocket while he talked to a buyer. "Do all of them," she said. Eddie opened the office first. The air inside had gone stale overnight. Glenn's coffee mug sat beside the computer with a brown crescent dried at the bottom, though he had not drunk from it in weeks. On the desk lay a yellow legal pad filled with Cal's handwriting. "Call Martin, walk property room, count/occupied, mom, options." Marlene read the last line twice. Alma read over her shoulder. "Maybe your option is hitting him with the legal pad. He'd sue for a paper cut." The office phone rang. Marlene picked it up before the second ring. "Juniper Motel." There was a pause. "Mom?" "Good morning, Cal. What are you doing there?" "Working. Harold called me. He wanted a receipt, not a son." "Why is there a locksmith?" Marlene looked through the window. Eddie had removed the cylinder from room 1 and laid his tools on a folded cloth. Alma was sweeping dead leaves from the walkway with a broom she had found beside the laundry room. "Because someone took my keys. I was bringing them back." "With my truck?" Another pause. "I'll be there in 15 minutes. You can leave the truck in front of the office." Marlene. Cal had never called her by her first name in anger. It sounded rehearsed and grown up, a boy wearing Glenn's voice. 15 minutes, she said, and hung up. She printed Harold's receipt, but the printer chewed the top edge and spat it out crooked. Harold accepted it anyway. "Good enough for payroll," he said. At his truck he stopped. "You staying open?" "Yes." He nodded as if she had confirmed the weather. "Need a room next week?" 5 nights. "Room 11? If the heat's fixed, the heat works. It whistles. That's how you know." He smiled. "Put me down." The exchange was worth $325 before tax. Marlene wrote it in the reservation book by hand because the computer took 8 minutes to wake up. Against the locksmith's bill, it looked like a teaspoon dipped into the ocean. Still, it was the first money the motel had earned under a decision that belonged only to her. Cal arrived in Glenn's truck hard enough to scatter gravel. He got out holding the stolen key ring. His suit was gone, replaced by jeans and a canvas work jacket, but he had not shaved. Grief had left dark hollows beneath his eyes. For one disorienting second, Marlene wanted to tell him to come inside and eat something. Then he saw Eddie working on room 4. "Stop!" Cal shouted. Eddie glanced at Marlene. "Keep going," she said. Cal strode into the office and dropped the keys on the counter. "What are you trying to prove?" "Nothing. That's what you don't understand." You just spent $2,000 because I kept your keys overnight. You locked me out to get you to Denise's. You could have asked. We did ask. You don't listen. Marlene placed both palms on the counter. The laminate was worn white along the edge where her hands had rested thousands of times. You didn't like my answer? Because your answer is insane? Dad is gone. Half these rooms aren't usable. You can't be on call every night by yourself. I have managed this place longer than you've managed anything. He flinched. She had aimed the words and could not pretend otherwise. Cal pulled the yellow legal pad off the desk. Martin Pike is coming at 11. He buys places like this is. No repairs, no cleaning it up, no pretending it's going to turn into some cute roadside inn. Call him. His shoulders loosened. Tell him not to come. They stared at each other across the counter. Outside, Eddie tested a new key in room 5. The deadbolt turned with a clean metallic click. You'll change your mind, Cal said. Maybe. But it will be my mind when I do. Cal looked toward the apartment door, then at Glenn's mug, and for the first time his anger slipped. What showed beneath it was not greed exactly. It was panic. Dad wanted out, he said. Your father wanted 3 different things before breakfast. He told me selling was the only sensible choice. Then he should have sold while he was alive. The sentence hurt them both. Cal picked up the truck key, separated it from the old ring, and set it on the counter. Your car's still at my place, Marlene said. I'll get a ride. He walked out. At room 7, he stopped to say something to Eddie, thought better of it, and continued toward the highway with his phone already in his hand. Marlene waited until he was beyond the vacancy sign before she sat in Glenn's desk chair. Alma appeared in the doorway carrying the broom. So, she said, are you reopening, closing, or just spending money on locks? Marlene looked through the office window at the long row of doors. Paint peeled beneath the eaves. Room 13's curtains sagged in the middle. Blue plastic covered part of the roof over the closed wing, snapping whenever the wind lifted. Yesterday, those problems had belonged to a life she and Glenn shared. Today they looked larger, meaner, and entirely hers. Let's see which rooms can earn their keep, Marlene said. Alma leaned the broom against the wall. That sounds suspiciously like work. I can't afford you yet. Then you better make good coffee. Marlene reached for the reservation book. Outside, one new lock after another turned, caught, and held. They started with room 1. Alma opened the door, took one step inside, and backed out again. Cigarettes. It's non-smoking. The sign is non-smoking. The room has made other choices. Marlene went in. The sweet, stale odor had settled into the curtains and carpet. A yellow burn marked the edge of the nightstand, and the bedspread had a hole near one corner. Glenn had rented the room to a man from Tennessee for 3 weeks in August. Marlene remembered finding him smoking beside the ice machine every evening, always just far enough from his door to claim innocence. Glenn charged him the cleaning fee, she said. Did Glenn clean it? Marlene opened the curtain. Sunlight made the room look worse. They developed a system. Green painter's tape meant the room could be rented after cleaning and small repairs. Yellow meant money. Red meant shut the door and try not to think about it until after lunch. Room 2 had a brown water stain spreading across the ceiling. Room 3 was occupied by Jean Cates, a respiratory therapist working a temporary hospital contract. So they listened outside her door and decided the silence meant the air conditioner had not exploded. Room 4 smelled clean, but had a bathroom faucet that would not stop dripping. Room 5 contained a patch of black mildew behind the curtains and received red tape before Alma had both feet inside. You knew about this? Alma asked. I knew the window leaked. This is not a window leak. This is a mushroom farm. Put it on the list. You got paper long enough? By room 8, Marlene's funeral shoes had begun rubbing the backs of her heels. She had changed out of the black dress at Denise's, but had forgotten to pack different shoes. She sat on the edge of the bed while Alma checked the shower. The mattress sank beneath her. Bad? Alma called. I may never get up. That mattress was old when I started here. So were you. Alma appeared in the bathroom doorway. And I don't sag in the middle. They laughed, and the sound startled Marlene. It did not belong in the quiet room with its faded floral print and dusty Gideon Bible. For half a second she expected Glenn to call from the walkway and ask what was so funny. The expectation passed, leaving its shape behind. Marlene stood too quickly. Room 8 is yellow. It needs a mattress. Yellow. Alma did not argue. Room 11's bed was made with military precision. Harold's shaving kit sat beside the sink, and 4 quarters were lined up on the dresser. Marlene did not touch anything. She listened to the heater whistle and wrote it down. At room 13, the curtain rod came loose when Alma pulled the drape aside. Alma caught it against her shoulder. "Yellow," Marlene said. "I'm thinking red from assault." Rooms 14 through 18 had been closed since August. The blue roof tarp snapped above them in the wind. In room 16, part of the ceiling had fallen onto the second bed, scattering damp chunks of plaster over the cover. Glenn had set a trash can beneath the hole, as if the ceiling might agree to fall neatly into it. Marlene stood in the doorway. "He kept saying we'd handle this after leaf season." Alma poked the damaged plaster with the broom handle. More crumbled down. "Glenn said lots of things. You don't have to start on him today." "I didn't start. The ceiling started." Marlene pulled the door closed and pressed red tape above the number. When they finished, 6 doors wore green, 7 yellow, and 5 red. The motel had looked tired from the road. Up close, it looked like it had been negotiating separate surrenders in every room. Alma leaned against the walkway railing. "You want the kind answer or the useful one?" "Useful. You can't open 18 rooms. I know that. You can't open 12. Marlene looked at the green tape. 6, she said. 6 clean rooms are better than 12 rooms where people sleep in their clothes. We have 2 occupied now. Jean keeps her room cleaner than we do. Harold would sleep in a culvert if you gave him a receipt. Marlene took the room list into the office. On the last page of the reservation book, Glenn had written the monthly totals in his slanted hand. September had been the worst month in 11 years. October would be worse. The business account held enough to cover utilities, taxes, the locksmith, and perhaps 5 weeks of ordinary expenses if nothing else broke. At the Juniper, something else always broke. Alma stood on the other side of the counter, waiting. "I can pay you for today," Marlene said, "and tomorrow. How much?" "16 an hour. You paid me 15 before. I'm trying to impress you." 17, 16.50. Alma extended her hand across the counter. "You always did bargain over the cheapest things." Marlene shook it. "And you always asked for more when you knew I was cornered. That is why we understand each other." They began stripping room 1. The bedspread went into a black trash bag. The curtains followed. Alma pulled the filter from the wall unit, held it up, and stared at Marlene through a thick gray layer of dust. Was this filtering air or gravy? "Write down air filters. I'm going to write down new motel." Shortly after 2, Denise's SUV pulled into the lot. She sat behind the wheel for a full minute before getting out. She had showered and dressed for work, though Marlene did not think she had gone. Her hair was pinned neatly again, and she carried a covered glass dish. "I brought lunch," she said. "Put it in the apartment refrigerator." "Not the little one." Denise looked at the green tape above room 1 and the bundle of curtains on the walkway. "What is all this?" "Inventory. Cal said you changed every lock. He had a master key. He brought it back. After I hired a locksmith." Denise set the dish on the hood of her SUV. $1,800, Mom. You two are very informed about my money. This is exactly what I was afraid of. You're angry, so you're making expensive decisions." Marlene tied off the trash bag. "No, I made an expensive decision because my son could enter my apartment, office, laundry room, and every occupied guest room whenever he pleased. You know Cal wouldn't hurt anybody. I trusted both of you yesterday morning." Denise looked toward Alma, who had become deeply interested in wiping the same window 6 times. "That's not fair." "No, it isn't. We were trying to get you through one night. You made an appointment with a buyer. Cal made an appointment. You knew? I knew he'd talk to somebody. I didn't know he was coming today, but you knew enough to pack my pills." Denise folded her arms. "You missed doses when Dad was sick. Twice. That you remember?" Marlene felt the argument tug toward old ground, where every forgotten appointment and exhausted mistake could be arranged into proof that she should no longer direct her own life. Denise was good at arranging things: drawers, holiday meals, other people. "I am not saying I don't need help," Marlene said. "I'm saying help that begins with taking my keys isn't help." Denise's face softened, then closed again. "What are you going to do? Clean rooms all day and answer the phone all night?" "For now." "You'll make yourself sick." "That is possible." "And then what?" "Then you can say, 'You told me so,' while driving me to the doctor." "I don't want to say I told you so. You've always enjoyed it a little." Denise gave a helpless laugh before catching herself. For a moment, mother and daughter stood on either side of something that might have been repaired. Then Denise looked at the taped doors. "I won't help you pretend this place can run the way it did. Neither will I." Denise studied her, unsure what that meant. Marlene was not entirely sure either. The glass dish contained turkey sandwiches with the crusts cut off. Marlene had not eaten a crustless sandwich since she was 9, but she ate 2 while standing behind the desk. Denise left without saying goodbye. She also left the dish. Alma lifted the cover. "She put grapes in here. She worries in complete meals. She mad? Yes. You mad? Yes. You still paying me? Until 5. Then I'm mad on your side." At 4:30, Jean Cates emerged from room 3 in navy scrubs, her dark hair flattened on one side from sleep. She squinted at the tape above the doors. "Are we being condemned?" "Improved," Marlene said. "That can be worse. Your room all right?" "The shower takes forever to get hot, and something knocks in the wall around 2 in the morning. That's plumbing. I thought it might be the former owner." Marlene's breath caught. Jean's face changed. "I'm sorry. Harold told me about your husband. That was a stupid thing to say. Glenn would be offended you mistook him for plumbing." Jean smiled carefully. "I'm here another 5 weeks if that matters. Maybe 7. The hospital keeps changing its mind. It matters. Don't make it fancy. I just need dark curtains and coffee before 6. Those are both on the list." Jean went to her car. Marlene wrote 5 weeks beside room 3 in the reservation book. The guaranteed income would not cover a roof or new mattresses, but it could cover Alma for several days and buy curtains that did not smell like cigarettes. When Alma left, Marlene carried her bag into the apartment. Nothing had moved since the reception except the food. Glenn's shoes remained beneath the bed. His reading glasses lay folded on the nightstand beside a paperback Western with a grocery receipt marking his page. Marlene picked up the book, saw that he had stopped halfway through a gunfight, and put it back exactly where it had been. She sat on her side of the bed. The motel had quieted. A television murmured behind one wall. A truck downshifted on the highway. The apartment refrigerator gave its familiar shudder and began to hum. Marlene had spent months listening for Glenn in the night. His breathing, his cough, the careful scrape of his slippers when he tried to reach the bathroom without waking her. Now there was nothing to listen for, and the nothing was louder. A knock came at the apartment door. Harold stood outside, holding a bent metal vent cover. "Heat quit," he said. "Room 11? Yes, ma'am." Marlene took Glenn's old flashlight from the kitchen drawer and followed him. The new master key felt stiff in room 11's lock. She turned it, heard the clean click, and went inside. The heater had not quit. Harold had kicked the vent shut while moving his work bag. Marlene straightened it, reset the unit, and waited until warm air began pushing into the room with its high, complaining whistle. Harold held his hands over it. "Knew you'd figure it out. It was your boot. Boots are complicated machinery." Back in the office, the phone rang just as Marlene reached for the light switch. A man wanted 2 rooms for 3 nights starting Monday. He and another electrician were working at a medical office renovation nearby. He asked whether the juniper was clean. Marlene looked through the window at the 6 doors marked green. "6 rooms are," she said, "which is how many I'm renting." The man paused, then laughed. "Put us down for 2. Marlene opened the reservation book. Outside, the old vacancy sign remained dark, but in the office window, the desk lamp burned late. The man's name was Leonard Pike, which made Marlene ask him to repeat it. "No relation to Martin Pike," he said, "unless he owes you money. Then he's my brother." Marlene wrote Leonard and Wes, rooms 1 and 4, 3 nights. She took a card number and warned him that the motel's ice machine worked when it felt spiritually prepared. "We bring a cooler," Leonard said. "How old is this place?" "Old enough not to lie about itself. That's what I'm looking for." After they hung up, Marlene stared at the 2 names in the reservation book. Room 1 still smelled like a tavern carpet, and room 4's faucet was dripping fast enough to fill a cup every hour. Monday was 4 days away. Alma arrived the next morning at 8, wearing jeans this time, and carrying a bucket full of cleaning bottles. "You own all those?" Marlene asked. "I liberated them from my house. I'm paying for supplies. Then buy bleach. Yours expired during the Bush administration." "Bleach doesn't expire. Yours has become water with memories." A silver work truck pulled in behind Alma's Honda. The driver parked beside room 5 and got out with a tape measure clipped to his belt. He was tall and lean, with close-cut hair and a brown hooded sweatshirt beneath his work vest. He nodded to Alma, then looked up at the blue tarp over the closed wing. "You brought somebody," Marlene said. "I brought an opinion. I already have yours. Mine is about cleanliness. His costs more." The man approached and extended a hand. "Darius Cole, Marlene Voss. I did the bathroom tile at Alma's place." "It's crooked," Alma said. "Your floor is crooked. Sounds like excuses." Darius did not smile, but something moved at one corner of his mouth. Marlene had seen his truck around town and remembered Glenn mentioning a Cole who did reliable work, but did not answer calls after 5. Glenn considered that a character flaw. Marlene considered it evidence of intelligence. "I didn't call a contractor," she said. "You need one," Alma replied. Darius looked from one woman to the other. "I can leave." Marlene glanced toward room 1, where the curtains and bedspread were piled in trash bags. "Can you give me an estimate without pretending everything needs to be replaced? I can tell you what's unsafe, what's ugly, and what's both. You decide what you can stand. What do you charge? For looking, nothing. For fixing, enough. Very precise. I save numbers until I've seen the holes." He began with room 2. He pressed 2 fingers into the stained ceiling, inspected the plumbing wall from outside, then climbed a ladder and spent 10 minutes on the roof. When he came down, his knees were dusted with black grit. "The roof over this section isn't gone," he said. "Flashing failed around the vent. Water's tracking sideways before it comes through. I can stop that. Ceiling needs to dry before it's patched. Cost? $800, assuming the decking's sound." Marlene wrote it down. In room 4, Darius turned the faucet handle, crouched beneath the sink, and found a shut-off valve green with corrosion. Room 5's mildew came from the same failed flashing as room 2, but the wallboard would need to come out. The heater in room 8 was older than Darius and twice as noisy. Room 13's curtain rod was the least expensive thing wrong with it. At the closed wing, he studied the sagging ceiling in room 16 and shook his head. "Don't rent any of these. I wasn't planning to." "People plan all kinds of things when rooms start filling." Marlene bristled. "I ran this motel before you had a driver's license." Darius met her eyes. "Then you know I'm right." Alma coughed into her hand to hide a laugh. Darius inspected the exterior wall and the edge of the roof. He took photographs, measured twice, and made notes in a small spiral pad. He did not whistle through his teeth or say wow, both of which Marlene had learned were contractor methods of increasing a price before writing it down. In the office, he separated the work into 3 pages. One covered repairs needed for the 6 green rooms. Another covered the yellow rooms. The third began with the roof over 14 through 18 and ended with a number Marlene refused to read twice. "You could buy a small car for that," she said. "You could park a small car on what's left of that roof. It might help hold the tarp down." Alma leaned over the pages. "What can she do by Monday?" Darius tapped the first page. "Room 1 needs cleaning and paint. I can replace the faucet and shut off in 4 today. Patch the flashing tomorrow if the weather holds. Room 2 won't be ready by Monday, but it'll stop getting worse. The other 3 green rooms need locks, filters, and things she can do herself." "The locks are new," Marlene said. "I mean the bathroom privacy locks. Room 6's is held together with tape. That's decorative tape. Then it's decorative and broken." His total for immediate work was $3,800, including materials. The yellow rooms could be brought back 1 or 2 at a time, but not without new mattresses, flooring, electrical work, and more money than Marlene wanted Alma to see on her face. "I need to think," she said. Darius gathered his pages. "Thinking's free. Do you require half up front? For this size job, materials plus 20%. I invoice the rest when each section is finished. No grief discount." Marlene looked at him. "People ask," he said, "but shingles don't know anybody died." It was blunt enough to be kind. She asked him to wait while she checked the business account. The number had not improved overnight. After utilities and the locksmith, hiring Darius would leave little room for mistakes. Yet the water stain in room 2 was already spreading, whether she paid attention to it or not. Marlene returned with her checkbook. "Fix the leak, room 4, and whatever keeps 6 rooms from embarrassing me. That last category can get expensive. Ask Alma before you replace anything. She embarrasses easily." "I do not," Alma said. "I worked here 11 years. Darius accepted the check and went to retrieve his tools. A minute later, he returned from the maintenance shed empty-handed. "Do you have a compressor?" In the shed. No compressor. There's a red one under the workbench. There's an outline where a red one used to be. Marlene followed him. The maintenance shed had always been Glenn's territory, a narrow room smelling of oil, cut lumber, and mouse poison. Pegboard covered one wall. Tools had hung there in black marker outlines, each labeled in Glenn's handwriting. Several outlines were empty. The circular saw was gone. So was the air compressor, the long extension ladder, the cordless drill set, and a red metal case containing plumbing tools. Marlene opened the cabinet beneath the workbench. Empty. Did Glenn sell these? Alma asked. No. She remembered Cal loading something into his van during one of Glenn's hospital stays. He had said he was borrowing the table saw for a built-in job. Marlene had been carrying soup to the apartment and had not asked when it would return. Darius stood in the doorway. I have my own equipment. That's not the point. No, ma'am, Marlene called Cal. He answered on the fifth ring with machinery whining behind him. I'm working, he said. Are Glenn's tools at your shop? A pause. Some of them. Which ones? I don't know. Stuff Dad let me use. The compressor, saws, ladder, plumbing case. I said, I don't know. Bring them back. I need the compressor today. So do I. For what? To run my motel. Cal made a short, disbelieving sound. You hired a contractor? Yes. Who? Darius Cole. Mom, that guy's expensive. He owns tools. The machinery in the background stopped. The sudden quiet seemed to expose Cal. Dad gave me that equipment, he said. When? He said I could have whatever I needed. That is not the same sentence. You weren't there. I was always there. The words came out sharper than she intended. Cal went silent. Marlene lowered her voice. Bring back what belongs here. My crew is using it. When? I've got a job due next week. When will you bring it back? I'll call you. He hung up. Marlene kept the phone against her ear until the deadline began to beep. On the pegboard, Glenn's black outlines remained. A cartoon inventory of what had vanished while she was busy keeping him alive. Darius shifted his weight. I can start without them. I will pay for your tools as part of your rate, Marlene said. I won't pay to replace mine. That's fair. Alma picked up a coffee can full of loose screws. Cal always borrow like that? Marlene set the can back harder than necessary. We let him. The we included Glenn. It also included her. Darius replaced room 4's corroded valve, while Marlene and Alma attacked room 1. They pulled up the carpet and found a dark line where someone had spilled coffee, or something Marlene chose to call coffee, beneath the bed. The concrete underneath was sound. Darius suggested commercial vinyl plank instead of more carpet. Costs more now, he said. Costs less every time somebody smokes, spills, or lies. Marlene approved the cheapest color that did not resemble a medical waiting room. She ordered new filters, white cotton coverlets, 2 blackout curtain panels, and a lamp with a charging outlet in the base. By noon, she had spent more money than the motel had earned in September. At 3, rain began tapping the office windows. Marlene went outside and stood beneath the walkway overhang, watching the dark clouds move over the highway. Water slid down the roof and spilled toward the patch flashing above room 2. Darius was still on the ladder, sealing the last edge under a plastic canopy rigged from his truck. He worked without hurrying. Alma stood below, holding the ladder, though Darius had told her 3 times it was secure. Inside room 2, Marlene watched the brown stain. Rain strengthened. The old mark darkened at its edges, but no fresh water gathered. No drop swelled and fell. She waited another 5 minutes to be certain. When Darius came in, wet from the shoulders down, she pointed at the dry ceiling. It stopped. That was the idea. You sound disappointed. I was hoping for applause. Alma clapped twice from the doorway. Darius packed his tools at 5. Room 4's faucet no longer dripped. Room 1's bare floor had been scraped clean, and the smoke-heavy curtains were gone. The place looked worse in the way things sometimes did after someone finally began fixing them. Leonard called to confirm the Monday reservation. Still clean? He asked. Cleaner than yesterday, Marlene said. Good enough. After Alma left, Marlene found the covered lunch dish in the apartment refrigerator. Denise had included a folded napkin under the lid. On it, in her neat handwriting, she had written, "Eat both sandwiches." Marlene washed the empty dish and set it beside the door. Then she went back to room 1, opened the window to the cold evening air, and began rolling the first coat of paint over the yellowed wall. By 11, Marlene had painted herself into the bathroom. She stood behind the closed door with the roller in one hand and surveyed the strip of wet wall between her and the exit. Glenn would have laughed until he wheezed. Then he would have stepped directly through the paint, leaving one shoulder print and blaming the roller. Marlene sat on the closed toilet lid and waited. The bathroom fan clicked overhead. A truck rolled past on the highway, rattling the window. She looked down and found white paint on her black funeral shoes. "That seems about right," she said. When the wall was dry enough to squeeze past, she carried the tray outside and discovered Jean standing on the walkway in her scrubs, eating crackers from a vending machine package. "Couldn't sleep?" Jean asked. "Got trapped? In the room?" "By poor planning." Jean nodded as though this were a diagnosis. "That'll do it." She looked into room 1. The walls were only half finished, the floor was bare, and every piece of furniture had been shoved into the center beneath a plastic sheet. "Already smells better. Low standard." "Those are useful." Marlene washed the roller, locked the office, and went to bed after midnight. Her hand reached across the mattress once before she was fully awake. It found Glenn's cold pillow and closed on the edge of the sheet. She stayed there until the alarm sounded at 6. Alma arrived at 8 with biscuits and disapproval. "You painted alone. I finished 1 wall. You finished 3. Were you hiding outside? You have paint in your hair." Darius came 10 minutes later with vinyl flooring stacked in his truck. He brought a man named Theo to help install it, and Marlene spent the morning moving between them, the office phone, and Alma's campaign against room 6's bathroom. At noon, Alma found Marlene scraping paint from a baseboard with a butter knife. "Eat." "I had a biscuit. You had half. I watched you give the rest to Harold." He was waiting for his ride. He was also holding a breakfast sandwich. Marlene put the knife down. "You're very bossy for someone employed through tomorrow. You're very irritating for someone who needs me Monday." Marlene looked toward room 1. Darius and Theo had finished half the floor. The gray-brown planks made the room look steadier, as though it had remembered it was built to last. Alma had already transformed the bathroom with bleach, new caulk, and language strong enough to loosen mineral deposits. "I can give you 24 hours next week," Marlene said. "At $16.50? Yes. 30 hours, 26. 28 and you buy gloves." "Done." Alma handed her a biscuit. "See how much easier business is when you're weak from hunger?" On Sunday afternoon, Cal pulled into the lot in his white work van. The Juniper's air compressor was strapped upright inside, wedged between cabinet doors and coils of trim. He lowered it onto the gravel with more force than necessary. "Here, thank you." The extension ladder was tied to the van's roof. Marlene looked up at it. "I need that until Tuesday," Cal said. "Darius needs it tomorrow. He has his own. That one belongs here. I'm finishing an install. So finish it today." Cal stared at her. "You think because you changed the locks, you get to treat me like a thief?" "No, I think because you took things without returning them, you get to return them." He untied the ladder, letting one strap snap against the van. Together, they lowered it. Cal's end slipped, and the ladder struck the pavement. "Careful," Marlene said. "It's a ladder, Mom. It was your father's. That stopped him." Cal stood with one hand on the aluminum rail, breathing hard. "You didn't care about Dad's tools when they sat in that shed for 10 years. I cared that they were there when we needed them. He told me I could use them. Use is not have. You want the table saw too? Because I'm supposed to finish a reception desk by Wednesday, and that saw is the only one I've got big enough. What happened to yours? Motor burned out. Then rent one. You know what that costs? Yes. I've recently learned quite a bit about renting tools I already own." Cal looked toward room 1. The door stood open, revealing the new floor and freshly painted walls. "You're really doing this?" Marlene did not know whether he meant renovating or disobeying him. "I have 2 men checking in tomorrow." "For how much?" "That isn't your business. It will be when you run out of money." A cabinet door shifted inside the van and knocked against another. Cal rubbed the back of his neck. "Martin would still buy. I told him to wait a week." "Call him again. I'm trying to keep you from closing a door you might need." "You took every key I had, Cal. Don't talk to me about doors." His face went still. For once, he had no quick answer. He returned the plumbing case and cordless drill, but kept the table saw. Marlene gave him until Wednesday, then watched his van turn onto the highway, with one strap flapping loose from the roof rack. Alma, who had been cleaning the office window on her day off, stepped outside. "You spying? I was driving by." You live 15 minutes in the other direction. I take the scenic route. Marlene carried the plumbing case into the shed. He's having trouble at work. You ask him? He'd say no. You giving him money? No. Alma's eyebrows rose. I said no. I heard. I was waiting to see if the sky opened. The electricians arrived Monday at 4:30 in a blue pickup with toolboxes fitted along both sides. Leonard Pike was broad and red-faced, with a beard trimmed square beneath his chin. Wes Harmon was older, narrow as a fence post, and wore sunglasses even after stepping into the lobby. Marlene gave them keys to rooms 1 and 4. No breakfast, she said. Coffee in the lobby at 5:30. Ice is behind room 9, unless the machine is having one of its spells. What kind of spells? Wes asked. It makes noise and produces nothing. You may recognize the condition from meetings. Leonard laughed. Wes removed his sunglasses and looked at Marlene properly. They inspected the rooms before unloading. Marlene waited behind the counter, pretending to organize receipts while listening for doors and footsteps. Room 1's new coverlet was white with a narrow green stripe. Alma had folded the towels so sharply they could have been measured. Darius replaced the bathroom lock that morning and installed the lamp with the charging outlet. Room 4 still had old carpet, but it had been cleaned twice, and the faucet no longer dripped. Leonard returned to the lobby. Room's good. Is that a full sentence, or are you building suspense? It's clean. Bed doesn't sag. Smells like paint. The window opens? That's fine. Wes came in behind him carrying a dead cockroach on a square of toilet paper. Marlene's stomach dropped. Found this under the dresser, he said. I'm sorry. It's dead. That's not our standard of welcome. He smiled without showing teeth. Means the treatment works. Marlene offered to move him, but he preferred room 4 because he could park directly outside. She gave both men her number and told them to call if anything failed. At 6:15 the next morning, Leonard called. Marlene answered from bed on the first ring. What broke? Coffee. She sat up. The machine. No, it works. This coffee could remove rust. That sounds strong. It tastes like somebody already used it. Marlene put on her robe and walked through the passage into the lobby. Leonard stood beside the coffee station holding a foam cup. Alma had measured the grounds the night before and left them ready in a filter. Marlene had added the water without noticing that yesterday's coffee remained in the glass pot. The machine had brewed fresh coffee on top of old. She poured it out. First cup's on the house, she said. Coffee's free. Then, I'm not losing money. She made a new pot while Leonard studied the faded postcards displayed beside the brochure rack. One showed the juniper in its first year, when the doors were orange and each room had a white metal chair outside. You ought to put chairs back out, he said. People steal chairs, bolt them down, then people complain the chairs don't move. He took the fresh coffee and nodded approval. Before leaving for work, he pointed at the dark vacancy sign. Transformer's bad. You can tell from here? I can tell because vacancy doesn't light and vacancy does. That's usually transformer or wiring. The V hasn't worked in 2 years. V's just a tube. Rest of its power. How much to look at it? He considered the sign. $90 after work, if it's what I think. Not as a favor. I don't do electrical favors. That's how people burn down garages. At 6 that evening, Leonard opened the sign's metal casing, while Wes held a flashlight. The transformer was corroded, and one wire had blackened at the connection. Leonard replaced both from parts in his truck. The V-tube was beyond saving, but when he switched the sign on, vacancy glowed red through the gathering dark. Marlene stood in the parking lot with Alma and Darius. The sign looked ridiculous without its first letter. It also looked more alive than it had in months. Could leave it, Darius said. Makes people curious. Makes people think we can't spell, Alma said. Leonard climbed down. New tube's about $150. I can order it. Marlene looked at the office windows, the 6 doors they had cleaned, and the other 12 waiting behind their yellow and red tape. Order it, she said. By Thursday, Leonard and Wes had asked to extend their stay another week. Jean confirmed 2 additional weeks at the hospital. Harold returned for 5 nights, still requesting room 11, and still claiming the whistle helped him sleep. Marlene paid Alma and Darius, then sat in the office after closing with the account ledger and a calculator. The motel had earned more in 7 days than it had during the first 3 weeks of September. It had also spent nearly 4 times that amount. The next group of rooms needed mattresses. The roof over the closed wing could not survive winter under a blue tarp. Paint and clean towels would not fix the old water heater or the electrical panel, Darius had called historically interesting. Behind the maintenance shed, Glenn's fishing boat rested beneath a fitted gray cover. He had bought it used 6 years earlier and taken it to the lake 11 times. The last 2 summers, it had not moved at all. Marlene unlocked the trailer hitch and pulled back the cover. Pine needles had collected along the windshield. Glenn's faded cap still hung from the throttle, its brim curled by sun. She sat in the passenger seat and held the cap in her lap. Cal would call the boat one of Dad's things. Denise would say decisions could wait. Glenn, if he had been there, would have found 3 reasons not to sell and asked Marlene to cover the motel bills from savings. She took a photograph of the boat, then another from the stern. A man at the marina had once offered to list it on consignment. Marlene found his number in Glenn's phone book and called before she could manufacture a reason not to. "I want to sell a boat," she said, "and I don't need a story about what it meant to somebody. I need to know what it's worth." The marina man gave her a story anyway. His name was Russell Gaines, and he remembered Glenn bringing the boat in after wrapping fishing line around the propeller. "He said the lake put it there," Russell told her. "Said he'd never seen that line before in his life. He bought that exact green line at your counter. I know, I sold it to him." Russell came to the motel the next afternoon with a clipboard and a portable battery charger. He removed the cover, checked the engine hours, crawled beneath the trailer, and tested switches while Marlene stood nearby with Glenn's cap tucked under her arm. "Boat's been sitting," he said. "That's why I called. Battery's done. Seats need cleaning. Trailer tires have some cracking. What's it worth? Listed right, maybe 14. I'd expect 12.5 to 13.5 when somebody starts pointing at every scratch. And your commission, 8%. I handle calls, test runs, and paperwork. You pay for the battery." Marlene did the calculation in her head. Enough for 4 mattresses, the next round of plumbing repairs, and a deposit on the closed wings roof. Not enough for all of it, enough to choose what failed first. Russell looked toward the motel. The replacement V-tube had not arrived, so A. Cansey glowed weakly in the office window, even in daylight. "You closing up?" he asked. "Opposite." He glanced at the boat again. Glenn loved this thing. Glenn loved telling people he had a boat. Russell smiled. "Those are different hobbies." He liked the first one better. Marlene agreed to list it. Russell said he would return Monday with a trailer truck after replacing the battery. When he left, she climbed into the boat and opened the glove compartment. Inside were 2 flattened packs of crackers, a rusted pair of pliers, sunscreen that had separated into oil, and a folded lake map with a coffee ring over the deepest cove. Glenn had written "good" beside 3 fishing spots. None had been good. Marlene knew because she had sat in the passenger seat while he blamed wind, temperature, boat traffic, and fish character. She took the map and the cap. Everything else went into the trash. Denise came Sunday evening for her glass dish. Marlene was in room 2 with Darius, deciding whether the damp section of ceiling needed to come down. Denise waited on the walkway until they finished. "You've got people working on Sunday now?" "Darius is leaving town tomorrow." Darius passed them carrying a ladder. "I also enjoy money." Denise stepped aside. Her eyes followed him toward his truck, then moved to the boat behind the shed. "There's a for sale tag on it." "Yes." "You're selling Dad's boat." "I'm trying to." Denise looked as if Marlene had announced she was selling Glenn's teeth. "Why?" "Because the roof leaks and the boat doesn't." "That isn't funny." "It wasn't meant to be." Denise walked around the trailer. She touched the edge of the gray cover, then took her hand away. "Did you ask Cal?" "It isn't Cal's. Maybe he wanted it. He wanted the motel sold last week. He can't develop sentiment by category. Maybe I wanted it." Marlene had not considered that. Denise had gone out with them twice, both times returning sunburned and irritated, because Glenn refused to leave before dark. "Do you?" Marlene asked. "That's not the point. It's a fairly important part of the point." Denise folded her arms. "You're making all these decisions while you're grieving. You and Cal made decisions while I was grieving. We were trying to slow things down. You called a buyer. Cal called a buyer. You keep saying that as though knowing about it was an innocent hobby." Denise looked toward the highway. A tractor trailer passed, its wake stirring dead leaves along the lot. "I don't recognize you right now," she said. Marlene felt that one land. Denise could have shouted and done less harm. "I'm not sure you recognized me before," Marlene said. Denise's chin trembled, but she pressed her lips together until it stopped. "Where's my dish?" "Washed, beside the apartment door." She collected it and left without coming inside. On Monday, Russell towed the boat away. The empty rectangle behind the maintenance shed was startlingly pale where the grass had been smothered beneath the trailer tires. Marlene stood looking at it until Alma came around the corner with a laundry basket. "You change your mind? It's already gone." "That wasn't my question." Marlene put Glenn's cap on her own head. It slipped down over her ears. "No," she said. "Then stop standing where it used to be." The 6 rooms began earning their keep. Leonard and Wes extended again. Harold told 2 men from his utility crew that the Juniper had hot water and no bed bugs, which Marlene learned was a high recommendation in their line of work. Jean asked for a weekly rate through Thanksgiving. Alma created a housekeeping schedule that did not require entering occupied rooms every morning, and the guests liked being left alone. Marlene replaced the faded photographs on the motel's listing page with pictures taken after Alma cleaned. She did not use filters or photograph the rooms from angles that made them appear twice as large. Under amenities, she wrote, "Coffee, parking outside your room, working Wi-Fi in most weather." When the website rejected that wording, she changed it to free Wi-Fi and felt dishonest. Leonard posted the first new review. "Not fancy, very clean. Owner tells the truth. Coffee improved after first day." Marlene printed it and taped it inside the office cabinet where guests could not see. The replacement V arrived on Thursday. Leonard installed it after work, then switched on the sign. Vacancy shone red across the wet pavement, every letter bright for the first time in 2 years. Alma came out of room 6 carrying towels. "Look at that," she said. "We spell. Don't get used to it." The boat sold after 12 days to a retired machinist from Georgia who spent an hour inspecting the trailer and another 40 minutes telling Russell why the price was too high. Marlene agreed to $13,000. After the battery, commission, and title fee, Russell handed her a check for $11,720. It was not a rescue. By the time she purchased 4 commercial mattresses, paid Darius to repair room 5's wall, and ordered materials for the roof, most of the check had already acquired a destination. Darius recommended replacing the ruined roof over rooms 14 through 18 all at once, rather than patching it again. His number was painful but lower than the first estimate because the underlying structure had survived. "If we wait until spring," Marlene asked, "you might get lucky." I dislike that phrase from contractors. You might also get water into the wall, rot the decking, and double the job. That sounds more like you. He could begin in 3 weeks if she gave him a materials deposit. Marlene wrote the check, then held it a moment longer than necessary before tearing it free. "That boat better become a very good roof," she said. "Roof won't take you fishing, neither did the boat." 2 days later, Cal arrived with Martin Pike. Marlene recognized Martin before Cal introduced him. He owned several low-brick office buildings near the interstate and had once tried to sell Glen replacement windows. He wore polished boots and a tan jacket that looked casual until Marlene noticed the stitching. Cal walked beside him toward the closed wing, gesturing at the roof. Marlene left Alma at the laundry cart and crossed the lot. "What are you doing?" Cal stopped. Martin wanted to see the property. "I told you to cancel. You said call him. I did. We decided there was no harm in looking." Martin extended his hand. "Mrs. Voss, I'm sorry about Glenn." Marlene did not take it. "Did Cal tell you I'm not selling?" Martin lowered his hand without visible offense. He said, "You hadn't decided. I've decided. We can still talk. My interest isn't dependent on room condition. I'm looking at the land, road access, utilities. What would you do with it?" Martin looked at Cal before answering. "Probably clear the structures and divide the frontage. Drive-through food on one side, retail on the other, depending on traffic study." He said clear the structures while standing beneath the walkway Glenn had repaired twice. The side doors Alma had scrubbed by hand. He meant demolition, but clear sounded cleaner, as if the motel were a stain. Cal pointed toward the highway. "That's why the offer could be better than a motel buyer. He doesn't care what needs fixing." "I care," Marlene said. "I know you do, but no. You know what it costs. That isn't the same thing." Martin glanced toward his SUV. "I don't want to intrude on a family discussion." "You already are." He gave Cal a small nod. "Call me if circumstances change." Marlene watched him leave. His tires passed over the pale strip where Darius had recently filled a crack in the pavement. Cal remained by room 14. "You embarrassed him. He'll survive. You didn't even hear a number. I heard what he wanted to do. It's buildings, Mom. Rotting buildings. Room three's curtain moved. Jean was awake, though Marlene could not tell whether she had heard them. Lower your voice, Marlene said. Why? Worried the guests will find out this isn't paradise? No one here was promised paradise. Cal laughed once bitterly. You sold Dad's boat and put the money into a roof. You're throwing good money after bad because you're mad at us. I sold something we didn't use to repair something we do. You had no right to sell that without talking to me. The boat belonged to Glenn and me. He was my father. And my husband. Those facts are not fighting each other, no matter how often you make them. Cal paced to the railing and back. Martin's offer could pay off everything and leave plenty. For me, for all of us. The words slipped out too quickly. Marlene looked at him. Why would selling my motel leave money for you? Cal's face changed. He shoved his hands into his jacket pockets. That's not what I meant. What did you mean? I mean, some of us don't have months to watch you prove a point. Marlene thought of the burned-out saw motor, the borrowed compressor, the cabinet doors knocking inside Cal's van. What happens in a few months? She asked. Nothing. Cal. I said nothing. He walked toward his van. The Juniper's old table saw was visible through the rear windows, buried beneath scraps of plywood. Wednesday was over a week ago, Marlene called. Cal opened the driver's door. I need the saw. So do I. He got in without answering. That evening, Marlene took the printed review from inside the cabinet and read it again. Not fancy. Very clean. Owner tells the truth. Outside, the new V burned steadily above the lot. Marlene folded the review once and placed it in the cash drawer beneath the day's receipts. Then she called Darius and told him to order the roofing materials before she could be talked out of it. Already did, Darius said. You ordered before I called? You gave me a deposit. I could have changed my mind. You still can. I'll build a very expensive shed out of your shingles. The roofing materials arrived the following Tuesday on a flatbed truck that blocked the driveway and made Harold late for work. Bundles of dark green shingles were stacked beneath the walkway roof, along with rolls of underlayment and sheets of plywood. Harold inspected them while waiting for the truck to move. Green roof? Charcoal, Marlene said. Looks green. Then, don't look straight at it. Darius brought Theo and 2 other men. They pulled down the blue tarp, exposing patched shingles in 4 different shades and a strip where Glenn had used roofing cement so thick it had hardened into a black ridge. The first section came off with alarming ease. Marlene stood below with her arms folded. Is it supposed to do that? No, Darius called down. You sound pleased. I enjoy being right. By noon, they had found 2 sheets of soft decking beneath room 16 and another near the end gutter. Darius showed Marlene where the wood flaked beneath his screwdriver. That adds $740, he said. Of course it does. I can put the old shingles back. Can you do that without smiling? No, replace it. For 3 days, hammering rolled across the motel from sunrise until the light went. John emerged each afternoon from room 3 looking like someone had been interrogated by woodpeckers. Marlene offered to move her to room 6, farther from the work. Will they be hammering there? Less. Then I'll just hear it from a distance and wonder if I'm imagining it. She stayed in room 3 and began sleeping with foam earplugs from the hospital. Room 2's ceiling dried. Darius cut out the stained section, patched it, and painted the whole ceiling when the new white square made the rest look yellow. Alma attacked room 5's remaining mildew, then made Marlene come smell the wall before she would declare it ready. What am I smelling for? Marlene asked. Damp. It smells like bleach. That's my signature. With new flooring in room 5 and a second commercial mattress delivered for room 2, the Juniper reached 8 rentable rooms. Marlene removed the yellow tape from both doors, but kept the strips in the office drawer. Throwing them away felt boastful. The bookings came in unevenly. 3 quiet days would convince her she had ruined herself. Then the phone would ring 6 times before lunch. A utility contractor reserved 4 rooms for 10 nights. 2 hospital technicians took room 5 by the week. A couple from Ohio stayed one night on their way south and left before dawn after stealing neither the towels nor the chairs. Alma found Marlene refolding pillowcases in the laundry room. I folded those. One corner was out. Which corner? This one. They're going in a closet. They stack better even. Alma took the pillowcase from her and unfolded it completely. What are you doing? Giving you a real problem. Marlene reached for it. Alma held it behind her back. If I'm running housekeeping, I'm running housekeeping. You're cleaning 8 rooms. I'm scheduling rooms, tracking linens, ordering supplies, and making sure Harold doesn't talk Theo into washing his reflective vest with our towels. He offered $5. He offered 2. Marlene stopped reaching. Alma folded the case in half, deliberately misaligned the corners, and placed it on top of the stack. Go answer your phone, she said. Marlene stared at the uneven edge. Marlene. She went. The caller wanted 3 rooms for the following weekend. A bridge repair crew had been sent from Tennessee after an inspection moved their work ahead of schedule. They needed parking for 2 work trucks and expected to stay through Sunday, perhaps longer. Marlene reserved rooms 2, 4, and 6, with Jean, Harold, the hospital technicians, and a traveling salesman in room 1. Every rentable room would be occupied Friday night. She wrote full beside the date in the book. Glenn had written that word with a circle around it, sometimes twice. Marlene drew no circle. She did, however, open the office cabinet and look at Leonard's printed review. The new roof was finished Thursday afternoon. Darius swept nails from the parking lot with a rolling magnet, then walked Marlene beneath the entire closed wing while water from a hose ran across the shingles. No leaks appeared in rooms 14 through 18. The damaged ceilings and walls remained, and room 16 still looked as though a storm had occurred inside it. But for the first time in years, nothing was getting worse. Marlene paid the final roofing invoice. Don't cash that until tomorrow, she said. I can wait until 9, 10, 9:30. You and Alma have been talking, only about you. Friday began with a shortage of fitted sheets and ended with 8 vehicles crowded into the lot. The men from Tennessee checked in together, carrying duffel bags and asking where they could get dinner after 9. Marlene sent them to a barbecue place near the interstate and warned them that the owner would claim the hot sauce was mild. The traveling salesman requested an extra towel. Harold lost his key, found it in his boot, and did not explain. Jean came through the lobby before her night shift and saw "full" written across the reservation book. Look at you, she said. Don't say anything. The plumbing might hear. At 7:30, room 4 called to report low water pressure. Marlene went down with the master key. The bathroom faucet produced a thin stream that weakened while she watched. Been like that long? She asked the guest. Shower started strong, then it got sad. She checked room 2. The sink sputtered, coughed rusty water, and stopped. In the office, the toilet tank was filling with a high whistle. Marlene opened the faucet in the apartment kitchen. Air spat from it. Outside, water had begun seeping through a crack in the pavement near the ice machine. It did not gush dramatically. It spread in a dark, quiet patch, carrying fine grains of sand toward the drain. Marlene crouched and touched the asphalt. The surface trembled beneath her fingers. Alma. Alma came out of the laundry room carrying sheets. What? Call Darius. Darius arrived 35 minutes later with a flashlight and a steel probing rod. By then, the patch had widened to the size of a dining table. Water pressure was gone in every room. Darius opened the meter box near the road and shut off the motel's main supply. The movement beneath the pavement slowly stopped. Line between the meter and building, he said. Probably galvanized. Could be original. Can you fix it? I can find it. I'll need Miguel for the plumbing connection and an excavator if it's under as much pavement as I think. When? Morning. I have 8 occupied rooms. You have 8 rooms without water. Marlene looked down the walkway. Guests had begun opening their doors. The man in room 6 came out with shampoo still foamed into his hair. Is it coming back? He called. Not tonight, Marlene said. The office became a place of apology. Marlene called every motel within 15 miles. 2 had rooms but charged nearly twice the Juniper's rate. One could take the Tennessee crew if they shared rooms. Another had a smoking room available for the salesman, who said he would sleep in his car first. Jean offered to shower at the hospital and stay, but Marlene would not take payment for a room without working water. Harold said he had slept in worse places and did not need a refund. Marlene refunded him anyway. The hospital technicians packed without complaint. The Tennessee men were polite until they learned their new motel had no parking for work trucks. One muttered that they should never have trusted a place with doors facing outside. Marlene heard him. She refunded every night, including the rooms booked through Sunday. She paid the higher rate at the other motel for the first night because the failure was hers, whether the pipe agreed or not. By 10, the Juniper's lot was almost empty. Jean remained in room 3 only because she had to leave for work within an hour. Harold stayed because his ride had already gone to bed and refused to come back for him. Both had envelopes containing refunds pushed under their doors. Marlene placed a cardboard sign over the office window. No water. Temporarily closed. The word temporarily leaned downhill because her hand shook while writing it. Alma found her in the laundry room, lifting wet sheets from the washer. The machine had stopped halfway through its cycle when the water was shut off. Each sheet weighed twice what it should. "Leave those," Alma said. "They'll sour. We'll take them to the laundromat tomorrow. We need them clean before the rooms reopen. We don't know when that is." Marlene hauled the bundle into a plastic bin. A pain caught below her shoulder blade. She ignored it and reached for another sheet. Alma closed the washer lid on her hand. "Move. I can lift sheets. You can also pay me to lift sheets. I'm not paying you tonight. Then I'm stealing them." Alma took the bin. Marlene tried to follow, but the room tilted slightly as she stepped away from the washer. She gripped the counter. Alma set down the bin. "Sit." "I'm fine. You're gray. I've always been pale. You look like old chicken. I'm not sitting on the laundry floor." "Good. There's a chair 10 feet away." Alma guided her into the office and put her in Glenn's desk chair. She returned with a bottle of water from the supply cabinet and waited until Marlene drank half. Darius came in at 11 with spray paint marking the likely path of the buried line. His jeans were wet at the knees. "Best guess? Break is 12 feet from the building," he said. "Miguel can come at 7. Excavator at 8. Best guess on cost? 3,000 if we find one clean break and the rest of the line holds. 6 or 7 if we replace the full run." Marlene closed her eyes. The boat money was nearly gone. The refunds had erased the best weekend the motel had seen in months. The roof check would clear in the morning if Darius honored 9:30. Every choice led to another invoice. "I'll be here at 7, he said. "You don't have to be." "Yes, I do. My tools are here." It was the closest Darius came to pretending concern was self-interest. After he left, Alma picked up Marlene's phone from the desk. "Who are you calling? Someone who can make you go to bed. Don't call Denise." Alma looked at the screen. "Why? Because she'll say this proves she was right." "Does it?" "No." "Then tell her that." Marlene reached for the phone, but Alma had already found the number. Denise arrived 20 minutes later in jeans, a wool coat, and no makeup. She walked past the close sign, saw Marlene behind the desk, and looked as though she had been bracing for something worse. "What happened?" "Waterline broke." "Are you hurt?" "No." Alma answered at the same time. She almost fell over. "I got dizzy. You turned gray." Alma has a limited color vocabulary. Denise came around the counter. Marlene expected a hand on her forehead, an order to pack, a speech about consequences. Instead, Denise crouched in front of the chair and looked at the damp footprints across the lobby, the refund receipts, and the handwritten list of relocated guests. Her eyes stopped on Marlene's face. "All right," she said quietly. "What do you need?" "I need you not to tell me what to do." Denise's mouth tightened. "That isn't useful. It is to me. I mean, right now. What needs doing right now?" Marlene looked around the office. Alma stood near the laundry room door with her arms folded. The refund slips lay in a crooked stack beside the register. A motel in town had promised to hold 2 rooms until midnight, but Marlene had not confirmed whether the Tennessee crew reached them. "The wet laundry needs to go to the 24-hour laundromat," Marlene said. "Those men need to be called. Jean will need a ride back from the hospital tomorrow if her car stays here, and somebody should move the coffee supplies before Darius digs up the water line and fills them with dirt." Denise stood. "Anything else?" "My overnight bag is still unpacked. That sounds less urgent." "I was testing you." Denise gave her a look that was pure Glenn, though neither of them would have appreciated hearing it. She took the plastic bin from Alma. "Where's the laundromat?" "Beside the grocery store," Alma said. "Machines on the left are cheaper, but the third dryer smells like onions." "Why?" "Nobody knows." Denise carried the bin outside. She did not tell Marlene to come home with her. She did not hide the master key, which lay on the desk within reach. She simply loaded the wet sheets into her SUV and left. Alma watched the taillights disappear. She learns fast when frightened. "Don't get excited. You think she'll come back?" "She took our sheets. She took your keys before." "That is not funny. It's a little funny." Denise returned at 1:30 with the sheets dried, folded, and arranged in stacks that would have satisfied a military quartermaster. She had also bought bottled water, coffee in a cardboard carrier, and a turkey sandwich with the crust still attached. "Progress," Marlene said. "I didn't make it." They ate in the lobby beneath the light of Glenn's desk lamp. Alma took the sofa. Denise sat behind the counter, where Cal had placed Martin's legal pad. She read the top page, tore it off, and folded it twice without comment. "You can sleep at my house," Denise said. "If you want. I don't." "All right, I'm staying in the apartment." "All right, you don't have to agree that quickly. It feels suspicious." Denise sipped coffee. "I'm trying something new." At 7, Darius arrived with Miguel Santos, a plumber who wore a navy cap and spoke to pipes as if they had disappointed him personally. Denise had returned with more coffee and stood beside Marlene while Miguel opened the meter box. The excavator came at 8. Its bucket bit into the pavement near the ice machine, peeling back asphalt in dark slabs. Beneath it, wet soil collapsed into the trench. Marlene flinched at every scrape. Darius noticed. "You want to watch from the office?" "No. Then try not to look like I'm digging up a relative." The break was 12 feet from the building, almost exactly where Darius had marked it. A length of old galvanized pipe had split along a seam. Miguel cut away the damaged section, then ran his thumb along the remaining pipe. Rust flaked off. "This is thin," he said. "I can patch here. Next break could be there." He pointed 3 feet away. "How much to replace the whole run?" Marlene asked. Miguel looked at Darius. Darius looked at the trench. They spoke quietly, measured the distance to the meter, and returned with a number of $6,400 if the excavation remained straightforward. Marlene felt the amount settle somewhere behind her ribs. "Patch? $2,100, Miguel said. "And if it breaks again, you pay again." Denise took a breath beside her, then stopped herself. Marlene looked at her. "Go ahead. Do you want my opinion?" The question was so deliberate it almost made Marlene smile. "Yes. If you patch it, you'll spend every cold night waiting for the next phone call. Replace it. That's my opinion, too." "Then why did you ask?" "To see if you could give one without taking my purse." Denise looked offended for half a second, then laughed. The sound surprised Miguel, who smiled politely without knowing why. Marlene authorized the full replacement. She moved money from savings to cover it and did not look at the remaining balance longer than necessary. The motel would survive the repair. It would not survive many more like it. The trench ran across the driveway, which meant no vehicle could reach the rooms. Darius laid temporary boards for foot traffic, but Marlene kept the motel closed rather than ask guests to drag luggage across mud and plumbing equipment. Rain began that afternoon. Water drummed on the new roof over rooms 14 through 18 and stayed outside. Marlene walked through the closed wing with a flashlight, checking every ceiling. Room 16 was still scarred and stripped, but the floor remained dry. One thing held. The new water line took 2 days. Miguel replaced the pipe from the meter to the building, added accessible shutoffs, and made Marlene label them. Darius filled the trench with gravel before restoring the asphalt, explaining that the patch would remain visible until it weathered. "So, the motel gets a scar," Marlene said. "Everything old enough has one." Denise spent the closure at the office computer. She had asked what would help, and Marlene had handed her a shoebox of receipts before either could reconsider. Denise sorted them by month, entered expenses into a spreadsheet, and created a list of reservations that could be updated without crossing out names until the page tore. "You charge Jean 3 different weekly rates," Denise said. "The first room had the bad shower. You wrote bad shower discount in the ledger. That's why. You paid for 6 air filters at the hardware store and 8 from a supply company on the same day. The hardware store filters didn't fit. Where are they?" "Maintenance shed." "Can you return them?" "It has been 5 months. Denise turned in the chair. "You do realize saving receipts is only useful if you look at them." Glenn looked. Glenn wrote amounts on envelopes and put the envelopes in a drawer. He had a system. He had drawers. The office held dozens of Glenn's systems. Spare keys had once occupied 3 coffee mugs. Guest registration cards were bundled with rubber bands that had dried and snapped. He kept plumbing invoices beneath road maps and tax receipts beside batteries. Denise made no comment about the difference between the man remembered behind the counter and the woman whose handwriting covered nearly every paid bill. She simply entered the figures. On the second afternoon, Cal drove past the entrance. His van slowed near the closed sign, but did not turn in. Denise saw him through the office window. "You didn't call him?" Marlene asked. "No." "Why not?" "You didn't ask me to." Marlene looked at her daughter. "Another new thing?" "I'm exhausted by personal growth." When the water returned, it came through the apartment kitchen faucet in a burst of air and brown sediment. Miguel let the line flush until it ran clear. Marlene moved from room to room, opening sinks and showers. Alma followed with a clipboard. Denise checked toilet tanks. Darius stood outside the utility room and watched the meter. Room 5 had hot water within 30 seconds. Room 4's new faucet ran clean. In room 11, the heater whistled while the shower steamed. Harold returned that evening. He parked beside room 11, stepped over the fresh asphalt patch, and brought his receipt into the office. "You fix it?" "We replaced the whole line. That'll cost." It did. He looked at the refund envelope Marlene had given him. "You didn't have to give me all this. I couldn't sell you a room without water. I could have used a bucket. I'm not putting that on the website." He booked 4 nights. Jean returned after him, carrying a hospital laundry bag and looking tired enough to sleep standing. She tested the shower before unpacking. "Hot," she reported. "You sound surprised. I work in healthcare. My expectations are managed." The Tennessee crew did not return. The hospital technicians had found weekly rooms elsewhere. The traveling salesman posted no review, which Marlene decided was better than an honest one. For the first week after reopening, only 5 of the 8 rooms were occupied. The missing vehicles made the lot look wider. Every time Marlene saw the new asphalt patch, she calculated how many paid nights it represented. She stopped ordering materials for room 8 and told Darius the next stage would have to wait. He did not argue. Call when the numbers say yes. The numbers never say yes. Then call when they stop screaming. Alma continued working 28 hours, though there were fewer rooms to clean. Marlene nearly reduced her schedule, then found Alma repairing the linen closet shelves with Glenn's returned cordless drill. "You paying me to clean or fix furniture?" Alma asked. "Apparently both." "Then I want a title." "What kind?" "Something that makes Cal ask me before touching anything." "Housekeeping manager." "Too narrow?" "Operations tyrant." Alma considered it. "Put that on a name tag." Marlene made her housekeeping and guest services manager, which fit on the payroll form and sounded respectable enough for Alma to complain about. Denise finished entering the receipts on a Sunday afternoon. She showed Marlene the monthly totals, the occupancy needed to cover ordinary expenses, and the amount each room earned after cleaning and supplies. "No miracles," Denise said, "but 6 rented rooms most nights keeps the lights on. 8 gives you room to repair things if nothing explodes. Things explode. Then you need 10 eventually." Marlene looked at the closed wing through the office window. "Eventually." Denise closed the spreadsheet, but did not shut down the computer. "I can come back Thursday and show you how to update this. I know how to use a spreadsheet. You wrote numbers in the margin because you didn't like the total. The margin accepted them." Denise smiled, then became serious. "When Dad got sick, you stopped answering your phone. I was busy. You missed Thanksgiving at my house. You forgot my birthday dinner. Every time I came here, you were carrying sheets or medicine or both. I thought if I gave you those keys back, you'd keep doing everything until you died, in that apartment too." Marlene lowered herself into Glenn's chair. "You could have stayed with me that night," she said. "You could have asked Alma to stay. You could have brought your coffee and sat right there until morning. I know, but you took the building. I know." Denise's eyes filled. She wiped beneath one quickly, irritated by it. "I'm sorry," she said. "I was scared, and I made that your problem." Marlene wanted to make the apology easier for her. The old reflex rose immediately. Tell Denise she understood. Say everybody had been tired. Fold the sharp edges inward until no one had to bleed. Instead, she let the truth remain between them. "I'm still angry," she said. "I know. I may be angry a while." "All right. You don't have to agree with that either. I'm not agreeing. I'm trying not to organize it." Marlene laughed, and Denise did too. When Denise left, she paused beside the counter where the new master key lay next to the reservation book. She did not touch it or ask for a copy. "Thursday," she said. "Bring coffee, fresh or yesterday's." Marlene pointed toward the door. Denise went out smiling. Afterward, Marlene walked the motel alone. Water moved through the new line beneath the scarred pavement. The 8 open rooms were warm. The closed wing stayed dry beneath the roof bought with Glenn's boat. In room 2, she opened the faucet and watched a clear, steady stream strike the basin. She let it run for 10 seconds, then turned it off herself. Denise returned Thursday with coffee, a flash drive, and a label maker. The first 2 are useful, Marlene said. The third is how civilization happened. Within an hour, Denise had labeled the office drawers, reservations, receipts, vendors, and supplies. She made smaller labels for the spare keys and one that read, miscellaneous. Marlene opened that drawer. What goes in here? Things that aren't one of the other things. Then label it, other things. That's why you don't get the machine. They worked until lunch, entering future bookings and matching payments to rooms. Denise showed Marlene how to change nightly rates without accidentally changing every date on the calendar. Marlene showed Denise that Harold's reservations were never firm until his supervisor called, no matter how often Harold said, "Put me down." The system did not know that room 11 belonged to Harold whenever his crew returned. It did not know Jean wanted no housekeeping after a night shift, or that the ice machine needed to be kicked low on the left side. Marlene added notes until Denise said the computer was beginning to sound afraid of the guests. Jean checked out the morning before Thanksgiving. Her contract had finally ended, and she was driving to Virginia for 2 weeks before taking another hospital assignment. She placed her room key on the counter beside a grocery bag. "What's that?" Marlene asked. "A respectable coffee maker, the kind with a timer. We have a coffee maker. You have a punishment device." Marlene looked inside the bag. "I can't take this." "Yes, you can. I bought it because I don't want the next tired woman in room 3 drinking what you served me." Jean hugged her across the counter, quick and firm. Then she hugged Alma, who complained that people should warn her before touching her while she was holding bleach. Room 3 stood empty that night. Marlene changed the sheets even though Jean had stripped the bed herself. On the nightstand, beneath the lamp, Jean had left a note. Not fancy, not lonely either. "Don't change both." Marlene put the note in the cash drawer with Leonard's review. Thanksgiving dinner was at Denise's house. Marlene arrived an hour late because Harold's replacement heater began whistling at a new pitch, and she wanted to be certain it was merely annoying rather than dangerous. Cal did not come. Denise said he was finishing a job. Marlene did not ask which one. They ate turkey at a table set for 3. Denise had placed Glenn's old gravy boat in the center, though none of them had ever called it his while he was alive. The silence around Cal's empty chair lasted until Marlene tasted the stuffing. "You used apples," she said. "Dad liked apples. Your father ate around every piece. He said he liked it. He lied at holidays." Denise smiled into her plate. "He said your sweet potatoes were too sweet. He ate 3 helpings. He believed criticism improved a cook. He believed criticism improved everybody except him." They laughed, and then both stopped because Glenn should have been there to defend himself. Marlene looked down at the gravy boat. Grief had become less like a wave and more like weather, sometimes distant, sometimes inside the room, before she noticed the door had opened. Winter settled over the juniper in cold rain and thin mornings of frost. The new roof held. The new water line held. The vacancy sign lost the second A during a windstorm, but Leonard mailed a replacement tube at cost, wrapped in so much foam that Alma accused him of shipping a kidney. Marlene kept 8 rooms open through December. 5 occupied rooms covered ordinary bills. 6 allowed small repairs. 7 felt prosperous until payroll and utilities arrived. She took no salary. When Denise noticed, she pointed to the blank line in the spreadsheet. "You have to pay yourself. I have a place to live. That isn't pay. It is when the roof is new. You're doing it again." "Doing what?" "Making your work invisible because you can survive without the money." Marlene closed the laptop. "The motel can't afford me yet." Then track what it owes you. "Owes me?" "Yes. Put in the hours. Put in a reasonable wage. If you decide later not to take it, fine. But stop pretending you cost nothing." The argument bothered Marlene for 3 days. On the 4th, she entered her hours. The total was embarrassing. She reduced it, heard Denise objecting in her head, and changed it back. Darius began work on room 8 in January when a slow month allowed him to fit small jobs between larger contracts. He replaced the sagging mattress, repaired the heater, and installed flooring over the concrete. Marlene painted. Alma chose curtains dark enough to satisfy a third-shift worker and refused Marlene's suggestion of a patterned border. "We're selling sleep," Alma said. Not wallpaper. Room 13 followed in February. Its curtain rod was the cheapest repair, just as Darius had promised. The leaking toilet flange beneath the tile was not. Marlene delayed replacing its furniture and moved the best pieces from closed room 15. By the first week of March, the Juniper had 10 rentable rooms. The additional doors changed the rhythm. A full 6-room week no longer meant turning people away. 2 traveling technicians booked for a month. A crew installing fiber optic cable stayed Monday through Thursday. On weekends, rooms emptied again, and the vacancy sign cast red light across too much pavement. Marlene learned not to panic at every empty door. She learned which online bookings were likely to cancel and how much to hold for taxes. She learned that Alma could solve a linen shortage without supervision, and that Darius would call before a repair exceeded his estimate by more than $200. She did not learn to leave the office phone unanswered. At 2 one morning, a man called to ask whether the Juniper had a hot tub. Marlene told him it did not. "What do you have?" he asked. "Beds." He hung up. She lay awake afterward, angry at him for calling, and angrier at herself for answering. Cal's table saw remained at his shop through the winter. Marlene asked twice. He said he needed it to finish outstanding jobs. He no longer mentioned Martin Pike, but he did not visit the motel either. Denise saw him more often. She would say Cal's busy or Cal's tired and then change the subject. Marlene recognized protection when she heard it because she had taught Denise how. The truth arrived in the back of Cal's van on a wet Thursday afternoon. He parked by the maintenance shed and opened both rear doors. The table saw stood behind stacks of empty plastic bins. Beside it were Glenn's long level, 2 clamps, and a red toolbox Marlene had not realized was missing. Cal looked thinner. His beard had grown unevenly along his jaw, and his work jacket hung open despite the rain. "You want to help me unload?" he asked. Marlene took the other end of the saw. Together they rolled it down the van ramp and across the pavement. One wheel caught in the new asphalt patch over the water line. "Lift," Cal said. "I am lifting. You're pushing." "I know the difference." They wrestled it into the shed. Its old place was marked on the floor by 2 cleaner rectangles beneath the wheels. Cal set the level against the pegboard and placed the clamps on the bench. "That everything?" Marlene asked. "Everything of Dad's. Everything from here." He looked at her. "Right." She waited. Rain tapped on the metal shed roof. Cal wiped his hands on his jeans, though the saw was clean. "I'm closing the shop," he said. Marlene had suspected trouble. She had not allowed herself to imagine the end of it. When? End of the month. What happened? What always happens. Jobs pay late. Materials went up. I underbid 2 commercial installs. Landlord raised rent in January. He gave a short laugh. Pick one. How far behind are you? 2 months on the shop. More with suppliers. The old response rose in Marlene before he finished. How much? She could feel the words pressing against her teeth. For years, that question had been the bridge Cal expected her to build between his problem and its disappearance. She asked a different one. "What are you going to do?" Cal's face tightened. "That's why I came." They went into the office. Denise was there for her Thursday visit, sitting at the computer with a stack of invoices. She looked up when Cal entered but did not seem surprised. "You knew," Marlene said. "He asked me not to tell you." "So you called him?" Cal shook his head. "I came because I need to know if you'll help me." "How much?" $18,000 would get the rent current and cover material for jobs I can finish. Denise looked at the invoices. Marlene sat behind the desk. $18,000 was more than the motel had available and less than the value Cal had convinced himself was trapped in the property. It was also not the first time. "We paid the tax bill when you opened," she said. "I paid you back. Half. You told me not to worry about the rest. We put the down payment on your first van. That was a gift." "Yes. We called everything a gift because calling it help embarrassed you." Cal rubbed both hands over his face. "I'm not asking for a lecture. What are you offering? A business plan? A repayment schedule? I'm your son." "That isn't a repayment schedule." He stared at her. Marlene heard how cold the sentence sounded. She also knew warmth had been the wrapper around every rescue that taught Cal to wait for her wallet. "You have money for rooms," he said. "You spent $13,000 on a roof over rooms you can't even rent. That roof protects a building." "And I'm what?" "You're 43. Denise's chair moved slightly. Cal turned to her. "You're just going to sit there?" She gets to decide, Denise said. Of course. You're on payroll now, too? No, you're here every week, because she asked. Marlene watched that answer strike him. No keys taken, no future arranged. Asked. Cal turned back to Marlene. Dad told me selling this place would give everybody room to breathe. Your father said selling would give him room to breathe. He said you were done too. I thought we were. Then he died, you took my keys, and I found out I wasn't done. So this is about punishing me. No. That would make you more important to the decision than you are. Cal stepped back as if she had slapped him. Marlene regretted the words immediately, not because they were entirely false, but because a small part of her had enjoyed saying them. I can't give you $18,000, she said more quietly, and I won't mortgage the motel or sell it to save the shop. You could give me something. I could. That's why I have to say no. His eyes filled with anger before anything softer could show. You always chose this place, he said, even when we needed you. Marlene opened her mouth to defend herself, then remembered birthday dinners taken behind the office counter, vacations canceled because a cleaner quit, Cal at 19 loading his own boxes while Glenn argued with a guest over a stained towel. Sometimes I did, she said. That answer unsettled him more than denial would have. I'm sorry for the times I shouldn't have, but selling it now won't give those years back. It will only teach you that I'm still here to make consequences disappear. Cal walked out without saying goodbye. Denise did not follow him. She waited until his van had left the lot. That was awful, she said. Yes. Was it right? I don't know yet. Denise closed the laptop. Do you want me to stay? Marlene looked toward the maintenance shed. Through the rain-streaked window, she could see the table saw standing in its old place. Yes, she said. Denise stayed. She made coffee in Jean's respectable machine, and neither of them tried to organize what came next. The coffee was good, which seemed unfair. Marlene drank it at the desk while Denise sat on the lobby sofa, with her shoes tucked beneath her. Rain blurred the red vacancy sign into a trembling reflection across the pavement. You could have told him no, without saying he wasn't important, Denise said. I know, he was trying to make the motel responsible for his business. I know that too. Are you going to call him? If I call tonight, I'll offer money, Denise nodded. Then don't. Marlene looked at her. You're supposed to be the one who thinks I'm being cruel. I think you were cruel for about 12 seconds. The other 10 years are more complicated. Thank you for narrowing it down. Denise took her empty cup to the coffee station. She knew where everything belonged now. Marlene watched her rinse the cup, wipe the counter, and leave the master key untouched beside the reservation book. Cal did not answer when Marlene called 2 days later. She left no message. She called again on Sunday, then stopped. At the end of March, a clearance banner appeared across the front of his shop. Marlene saw it from the road while driving to the supply company. Cabinet hardware, tools, fixtures. The word closing had been painted above the shop door in white. She slowed, and the car behind her honked. For years, Cal's name had been printed on that door in gold lettering. Glenn had helped hang the first sign. Marlene had brought sandwiches the weekend Cal moved in, then stayed until midnight, lining cabinet samples against the wall because he was too proud to ask. She turned into the next parking lot, circled once, and returned to the highway without stopping. The motel needed light bulbs. She bought light bulbs. Spring brought dogwood blossoms, roof pollen, and longer construction contracts. The fiber crew extended through May. A pair of physical therapists booked rooms 3 and 5 by the month. Jean's review appeared online beneath Leonard's, clean, quiet, and kind. Excellent for night shift workers. Curtains actually block light. Alma printed that one herself and taped it beside the coffee maker where guests could see. You're becoming vain, Marlene said. It mentions the curtains. It also says kind. That part could mean anybody. The lobby shelf began because a guest asked for laundry detergent after every store nearby had closed. Marlene found 3 single-use packets in the supply cabinet and charged him nothing. The following week, she added detergent, aspirin, sewing kits, earplugs, phone chargers, and microwave soup. Are we a motel or a pharmacy? Alma asked. A motel is whatever somebody needs at 11:30. They kept prices low enough to be useful and high enough to discourage people from emptying the shelf into their suitcases. Harold bought the same phone charger twice, having lost the first one in room 11. You sure it wasn't in your boot? Marlene asked. Checked both. Room 14 reopened in June. Darius rebuilt the damaged ceiling. Theo replaced the wallboard, and Marlene painted the room a soft cream after Alma vetoed 3 shades she called nicotine, old bandage, and mayonnaise. Room 15 followed slowly. The roof had protected it from further damage, but its bathroom tile had loosened and the air conditioner sounded like gravel in a dryer. Marlene waited until 3 profitable weeks accumulated before authorizing each repair. She kept a separate line in Denise's spreadsheet for her own unpaid wages. The number grew. She hated it less when it was visible. "You still have to take some," Denise said. "Not yet. Soon." "Yes." Denise had learned to let that answer stand for a while. By August, 12 rooms could be rented. 2 remained closed for plumbing and electrical work. Room 16 was still stripped to studs along one wall, and room 18 had become an accidental storage room full of mismatched lamps, old chairs, and boxes Glenn had labeled "Keep." Marlene opened one box and found 14 motel alarm clocks. "None of these work," she told Alma. "They're right twice a day. That's not enough for hospitality." She donated them to a theater company that wanted outdated props. Glenn's collection of road maps went to a used bookstore. Marlene kept the map from the boat in the apartment drawer with his cap. Each thing she removed made the storage room easier to cross and the apartment quieter. Grief did not object to every item. Sometimes it seemed relieved. The motel's improvement attracted a new class of complaint. When the rooms had been shabby, guests complained about obvious things. Now they complained that room 7's reading lamp was too bright, the coffee cups were too small, and the parking lines were crooked. A man in room 12 demanded a discount because a bird woke him. "What kind of bird?" Marlene asked. "How should I know? If it belongs to the motel, I'll speak to it." He did not laugh. Marlene gave him $10 off anyway, then spent an hour angry with herself. Alma found her repainting the parking lines at 7 on a Sunday morning. "You're doing that wrong," Alma said. "I'm following the old lines. The old lines are wrong, then they match the place." Alma took the striping machine from her. "Go inside. I can paint a straight line. You cannot even walk a straight line." "When did you sleep?" "Last night." "What hours?" Marlene pulled off her work glove. Alma waited. 1:30 to 5. "Darius!" Alma shouted. He was replacing exterior trim outside room 16. He came around the corner holding a pry bar. "What happened?" "She thinks sleeping is optional." Darius looked at Marlene. "It isn't? I don't remember hiring either of you as physicians. You hired me to keep this building from falling down," he said. "You live in it. That's a technicality." Alma pushed the striping machine toward the office. "You're taking Tuesday afternoon off. I'm doing no such thing," Denise called. Marlene stopped. "You're discussing me with my daughter?" She called to ask if you were free for lunch. "I said you are now. You can't give away my time. I run guest services. I am not a guest. You're not providing much service either." Marlene followed her into the office, angry enough to forget she was tired. Alma picked up the desk phone, turned on call forwarding, and entered her own number. "What are you doing?" "Tuesday noon to 5, calls come to me." "You are working until 4. I'll stay until 5. I'm not paying overtime. Then leave at noon so I don't need any." Darius leaned in through the office door. "I'll be here." "That doesn't help," Marlene said. "It wasn't supposed to." On Tuesday, Denise arrived at 12 carrying no overnight bag and making no mention of rest. "Lunch," she said. "Then I need shoes. You own shoes. I need different ones." It was an ordinary request, which made it harder to refuse. Marlene left written instructions for Alma, added 2 verbal instructions, and called from the parking lot with a third. "If you call again," Alma said, "I'm renting the apartment." Denise drove them to a diner 20 miles away, where no one knew Marlene as Glenn's widow or the Juniper woman. They ate hamburgers in a booth beside a window. Afterward, Denise tried on 7 pairs of shoes, while Marlene sat in a store chair and offered opinions Denise ignored. At 3:30, Marlene checked her phone. No missed calls. At 4, she checked again. "Do you want the motel to need you?" Denise asked. "No." "You look disappointed. I'm cautious. You've called it 3 different things." On the drive back, they passed the industrial strip where Cal's shop had been. The gold lettering was gone from the door. A paper sign advertised the space for lease. Marlene turned to look through the rear window. "He started somewhere else Monday," Denise said. "Where?" "Harlan Millwork, installer, hourly." "Is he all right?" "No. He's ashamed and furious and making less money than he did during his best years. But He has work. He has work. Marlene faced forward. The Juniper's lot appeared around the next bend. 12 doors had cars outside. Alma stood on the walkway talking to a guest with a laundry basket. Darius's truck was parked beside the closed wing. Nothing smoked, flooded, or flashed. Marlene felt relief first. Then, embarrassingly, something like exclusion. Inside the office, Alma handed her a list. Room 7 wanted another night. Room 10 needed towels. A woman called about 3 rooms next month. The ice machine made a sound like death, so I unplugged it. You took the reservation, deposit, and everything. Did you give room 7 the weekly rate? No. He has stayed 4 nights. Weekly starts at 7. Marlene checked the entry. It was correct. You could sound pleased, Alma said. I am. You look like you swallowed a nail. Marlene set the list down. I'm working on it. The ice machine required a new compressor. Marlene decided not to replace it. She bought 2 commercial ice makers for the lobby instead, then listened to 3 guests complain that bags were less convenient. Life continued. In September, Darius turned his attention to the room 16. He had expected wall repair, wiring, and new flooring. When he opened the plumbing chase, he found old supply lines corroded almost as badly as the main that had burst. Marlene came to look. How much? He told her. She leaned against the doorframe. You ever bring good news? I told you the roof was dry. That was months ago. It's still dry. She delayed room 16 and asked him to price converting room 18 into a communal kitchen instead. Long-stay guests had been balancing hot plates on bathroom counters despite the rules. A proper sink, cabinets, refrigerator, and 2 induction burners would be safer than pretending it did not happen. Darius measured the room. You'll lose rental income. It isn't rentable now. Could be. So, could the moon. He wrote an estimate. The number was lower than rebuilding it as a guest room because the bathroom fixtures could be removed and the existing plumbing reused. Cal could build the cabinets, Darius said. Marlene looked at him. Just saying, he does good work. He did good work. He still does. Losing a shop doesn't take it out of his hands. Marlene folded the estimate. Cal had not spoken to her since the day he asked for money. Denise relayed no messages now unless Marlene asked. Every Thursday, Cal's name sat between them like a cup neither wanted to knock over. That evening, Marlene drove past Harlan Millwork. Cal's van was in the employee lot. Through the open loading bay, she saw him carrying a finished cabinet with another man. He wore a gray company shirt instead of his own canvas jacket. He moved carefully, guiding his end through the doorway without touching the frame. Marlene parked near the road, but did not get out. Cal saw her when he returned for the next cabinet. For a moment, neither moved. Then he wiped his hands on his pants and walked across the lot. You need something? He asked through her open window. No. Then why are you here? I was passing. This isn't on the way to the motel. No. He glanced back toward the loading bay. You checking whether I found a job? I knew you had. Denise? Yes. He gave a humorless smile. Family News Service. Marlene looked at the gray shirt with another man's name embroidered over the pocket. I'm sorry about the shop, she said. You could have stopped it. Yes. Cal's jaw tightened. I'm still sorry, she said. The loading bay door rattled. Someone called Cal's name. He stepped away from the car, then stopped. You get what you wanted? He asked. Motel doing great? It's doing better. Good for you. He turned. I need cabinets for a kitchen, Marlene said. Cal looked back slowly. I'm not asking for a favor, she continued. I'd pay a fair price. With what? The money you wouldn't lend me? The question struck exactly where he aimed it. Yes, Marlene said. Money the motel earns. Cal stood in the employee lot, rain clouds gathering dark behind the building. I work here now, he said. I know. My answer's no. Marlene nodded. All right. She drove away before she could bargain, apologize, or make his refusal easier. Back at the Juniper, Alma had left the office key on the counter beside the reservation book. Marlene picked it up, then set it down again. She went to the apartment, closed the door, and let the motel run for 1 more hour without her. The hour lasted 47 minutes. A guest in room 9 called because his microwave had tripped a breaker. Marlene heard the office phone ring through the apartment wall and waited. It rang 3 times, stopped, then rang again. She sat on the edge of the bed with both hands beneath her legs. On the 4th ring, the call transferred to Alma. A few minutes later, footsteps crossed the passage. Alma knocked once and opened the apartment door. "Where's the panel key?" "Top drawer, blue tag." I looked. "Under the rubber bands." Alma returned 5 minutes later. The microwave came back on. The motel did not burn down, the guest did not leave, and Marlene remained seated until the full hour passed. When she returned to the office, Alma was writing Room 9, microwave on the maintenance list. "You buried the key," Alma said. "I knew where it was. That's not the same as accessible." Marlene took the label maker from Denise's drawer and printed electrical panel. She attached the label to the blue tag and hung it on a hook inside the office cabinet. Alma watched. "Civilization," Marlene said. Room 18 became a kitchen without Cal's cabinets. Darius found unfinished stock cabinets at a building supply warehouse and adjusted the layout to fit. The old bathroom came out. Theo laid durable flooring, Miguel moved the sink line, and an electrician installed outlets designed for the 2 induction burners. Marlene bought a full-size refrigerator from a restaurant that had closed. It had a dent on one side and shelves strong enough to hold anything Harold might attempt to refrigerate. Alma chose green paint for the walls. "Too dark," Marlene said. "It hides spaghetti." "Why are guests putting spaghetti on walls?" "You continue to misunderstand guests. They added 2 square tables, 8 chairs, labeled shelves, a microwave, and a cabinet full of pans bought from an estate sale." Marlene installed hooks for reusable grocery bags and a bulletin board for local information. The room opened in November, almost exactly a year after Glenn's funeral. No ceremony marked it. Harold cooked bacon at 6 in the morning and set off the smoke detector. A traveling nurse left half a lemon in the refrigerator with her name and date written on masking tape. 2 utility workers played cards at one table until midnight and washed their mugs before leaving. Marlene stood in the doorway after everyone had gone. The end room that once held broken lamps and dead alarm clocks now smelled faintly of coffee, dish soap, and bacon. Not fancy, not lonely either. She turned off the lights. Cal did not come to dinner on the anniversary of Glenn's death. Denise brought food to the motel instead, enough for Marlene, Alma, Darius, and anyone staying alone who wanted a plate. She asked permission before taping a sign in the lobby. "Supper at 6. All adult guests welcome. No speeches." "Why does it say adult?" Alma asked. "So no one expects entertainment," Denise said. "You think adults don't need entertainment? Not from us." 6 guests came. Harold brought a pie from the grocery store and claimed he had baked it. Darius ate 2 pieces without challenging the story. Marlene sat beside the lobby window in Glenn's old chair, while conversations crossed and tangled around her. She had expected the date to feel like a closing. Instead, it felt unfinished in a way she could live with. Cal sent a text at 8:13, thinking about Dad. Marlene read it twice. "Me too," she answered. Neither wrote anything else. The second winter was kinder to the juniper. Cold still found every weak seal, and a pipe beneath room 7 froze without bursting, but the roof, water line, and heaters held. Weekly guests used the kitchen. Longer stays meant fewer empty nights and less laundry turnover. For the first time, Marlene drew a paycheck. It was smaller than Denise wanted and larger than Marlene thought reasonable. She deposited it into her personal account, then spent 20 minutes resisting the urge to transfer it back. Room 16 waited until January. Its corroded supply lines had made Darius refuse any partial repair. Marlene hated him for approximately 2 days, then approved replacing the full branch while the wall was already open. "Look at you," he said, "learning from plumbing. Don't become sentimental." Theo rebuilt the wall. Alma selected curtains. Marlene ordered a desk from a commercial supplier, assembled it herself, then discovered one leg was shorter than the others. Darius found her sliding folded cardboard beneath it. "That cost $200, she said. "Did you follow the instructions? I'm widowed, not reckless." He knelt, loosened the frame, squared it, and tightened the bolts. The desk stood evenly. $200, she repeated. Cal would build a better one. Cal said no. "People say things angry. So do I." "Yes, ma'am." Room 16 opened in February. The first guest was an accountant sent to work at a manufacturing plant for 3 weeks. He inspected the desk, asked for a better chair, and never once mentioned the new plumbing. Room 17 came next. It needed less wall repair than expected and more electrical work. Marlene delayed the flooring until March, paid the electrician first, and kept a reserve untouched despite 3 nights of lying awake, calculating what else the money could repair. The Juniper reached 14 rentable rooms in April, 18 months after Glenn's funeral. 3 guest rooms remained closed. Room 18 remained the kitchen by choice. Marlene did not announce the number. She erased room 17 from the maintenance board, stepped back, and counted the remaining lines. Alma came in, carrying clean towels. 14, she said. I can count. You didn't circle it. I don't circle. Glenn circled. Glenn also wrote checks before deposits cleared. Alma put the towels away. You happy? Marlene looked down the row of doors. Cars were parked outside, 9 of them. A man sat in one of the bolted chairs Leonard had suggested, drinking coffee beneath the walkway. The repaired pavement had faded until its scar no longer looked new. Yes, she said. Your face should tell somebody. It told you. Your face told me gas pain. Marlene smiled despite herself. Cal appeared the following Saturday carrying a small desk upside down in the back of his van. He had called first. That alone changed the feel of his arrival. Marlene met him beside room 14. The desk was narrow, built from maple veneer with solid wood edges and a shallow drawer. Its legs angled slightly outward. A power strip was mounted beneath the back, so cords would not fall behind it. I made it in my garage, Cal said. You don't have a garage? I rent one from a man at Harlan. Weekends. Does Harlan know? I'm not using their material or equipment. Marlene ran her hand along the front edge. The joinery was smooth. The drawer opened quietly and stopped before coming all the way out. You put a finish on it? Commercial water-based. 2 coats. Won't ring from coffee cups unless somebody leaves one there all week. Guests leave coffee cups until they become furniture. Then 3 coats on the next ones. He had brought a 1-page estimate. Materials, labor, delivery. His price was higher than the commercial desk that wobbled, and lower than what Marlene expected from custom work. You already built it, she said. It's a sample. What if I say no? I sell it online. Do people buy motel desks online? They buy stranger things. She showed it to Alma, who pulled the drawer 6 times, pressed both hands against the top, and crouched to inspect the underside. You testing a desk or arresting it? Cal asked. I'm deciding if you inherited your father's shortcuts. His expression changed at the mention of Glenn. I didn't. No, Alma said. You got your mother's suspicion. They placed the desk in room 16 beside the repaired wall. The proportions suited the room better than the commercial one. Cal sat in the desk chair and checked knee clearance. Marlene stood near the door. Why did you change your mind? Cal kept looking at the drawer. I didn't. I was still mad when I built it. That clears nothing up. He leaned back. I hated you spending money on the motel after you wouldn't give it to me. I know. I thought if it failed, then you'd have to admit selling was right. Marlene waited. And when it didn't fail, he continued, that was worse for a while. Because? Because I spent years saying this place wasn't worth the work. You fixing it made me feel like maybe I just didn't want the work. You didn't want it? No, that doesn't make you wrong. Cal, she said, I spent years wishing one of you would love this place so I could stop. That wasn't fair either. He looked up. I told myself I was offering you a future, she continued. Sometimes I was trying to hand you my exhaustion and call it an opportunity. The room was quiet except for the air conditioner. Cal rubbed one thumb over a scratch in his work pants. I shouldn't have taken your keys. No. I thought if we got you away from here for one night, you'd realize you couldn't come back. You locked the office. I know. You packed my pills. Denise did that. You knew. Yes. Marlene looked at the desk between them. Its surface was empty, waiting for someone else's laptop, coffee, receipts, life. I was afraid you'd keep choosing this place over us, Cal said. So you tried to make the choice for me. Yes. It was not an apology dressed in explanation. It was simply true. I'm sorry, he said. Marlene nodded, but did not tell him it was all right. Cal stood. Do you want the desk? I want 4, if you can make them for this price. He read her face as if searching for charity. Same price? He asked. Same standards. 3 coats. I need half for materials. That's in your estimate. You checking my math? Yes. Something almost like a smile appeared. They returned to the office. Marlene wrote a business check for the deposit and made him sign the work order. Cal complained about the delivery date. Alma corrected his handwriting, and Denise arrived in the middle of the argument carrying coffee. For a few minutes, it sounded like family, without sounding like surrender. When Cal left, he did not ask for a key. He took the work order, the deposit, and the measurements for 3 more desks. Marlene watched his van turn onto the highway, then went back to room 16 and ran her hand once across the smooth maple edge. Cal delivered the remaining 3 desks 2 Saturdays later. He backed his van up to room 16 and opened the doors. Each desk was wrapped in moving blankets and strapped upright. He had changed the drawer pull from brushed nickel to black, after deciding the first one looked too much like a kitchen cabinet. "I liked the nickel," Marlene said. "You never said that. I didn't know it was being taken away." Cal stared at her. "Do you want me to change them back?" "No, I want you to know I liked them." "That is useless information. Welcome to family." He had put 3 coats of finish on the tops. One desk had a shallow nick along the back edge where it had rubbed against something in the van. Cal pointed it out before Marlene found it and said he would repair it after installation. "You could have put that side against the wall," she said. "I thought about it. But I knew you'd move it, find the mark, and call me at 6 in the morning. 7, 6:15. They carried the desks into rooms 2, 5, and 14. Alma tested each drawer. Darius checked the mounted power strips and said nothing, which Cal correctly understood as approval. Marlene paid the remaining balance only after Cal sanded and refinished the nick. He accepted the check without making a joke about the motel's money. A month later, he brought her an estimate for 2 more desks. "Price went up," Marlene said. "Maple went up. You still have material left. Not enough. I'll pay 3% more, 5, 4, and you put the nickel pulls back." Cal held out his hand. Done. He remained at Harlan Millwork. He complained about the supervisor, the schedule, and having his work inspected by a man who once installed a drawer backward. He also received a paycheck every Friday, left work at 5 on most days, and slowly paid down what he owed suppliers. Marlene did not ask for amounts. Cal did not ask about the motel's balance. Their conversation stayed mostly on safe ground: finish colors, desk dimensions, whether guests needed drawers at all. The unsaid things remained between them, but they no longer filled every available space. One afternoon, while waiting for a room to empty, Cal stood behind the office counter looking through the labeled drawers. "What are you doing?" Marlene asked, looking for a tape measure. "Maintenance supplies." I checked. Second drawer. That says miscellaneous. Denise labeled it. He opened the drawer and found the old key ring beneath spare batteries, rubber bands, and a packet of picture hooks. The brass master key, apartment key, and office key still hung together. None had opened anything since Eddie changed the locks. Cal lifted the ring. "You kept these?" "I forgot them." He turned the brass master between his fingers. "I thought you'd handed me everything because you agreed. I handed you the truck key. I knew that by the time I reached the door. Then why didn't you take the truck key off?" Cal lowered the ring. "Because if I gave the rest back, you could say no." I said no anyway, eventually. He placed the keys on the counter instead of returning them to the drawer. "Do you want me to throw them away?" he asked. Marlene looked at the dulled brass key that had once opened every room. "No, they can stay miscellaneous." Cal smiled slightly and put them back among the dead batteries. Summer filled the mountains with green and the motel with road dust. 12 rooms stayed occupied most weekdays. 14 filled often enough to make Alma complain about the laundry, and not often enough to make Marlene careless. There was no sudden transformation. The Juniper did not appear in a travel magazine. No developer returned with an offer that made everybody rich. The ice makers ran out whenever 3 crews filled coolers at once, and Room 7's door swelled in humid weather. A guest spilled red sports drink on Room 5's new flooring and proved Darius right about choosing vinyl. The motel paid its expenses. It paid Alma, Darius, Miguel, Theo, and whichever suppliers had stopped demanding payment in advance. It paid Marlene a regular wage and left enough to build a reserve she checked every morning and touched only when something genuinely failed. Denise reduced her office visits to twice a month. "You don't need me every Thursday," she said. "I never said I did." "You looked betrayed last Thursday when I didn't come. I had leftover pie." "You could have mentioned that." They settled into a relationship with fewer systems. Some weeks Denise came only for coffee. Sometimes she and Marlene sat in the kitchen with the guests and discussed nothing more important than weather. She still offered opinions. Marlene still rejected several on principle. In July, Denise suggested Savannah. For how long? Marlene asked. 3 nights. I can't leave 3 nights. You can. You don't want to. Those are closely related. Dad promised to take you. Then it's fortunate you're not Dad. Denise looked wounded. Marlene softened. If I go, it isn't to finish something Glenn failed to do. It's because I want to see Savannah. Do you? Yes. Then 3 nights. 2. 3. Marlene negotiated her own vacation down to 2 nights and regretted it before they reached the state line. They stayed the third. Alma carried the office phone while Marlene was gone. Darius had the maintenance key. Cal agreed to be available if furniture broke, though no furniture did. Marlene called the motel once from the hotel room. Juniper, Alma answered. How's room 11? Empty? The reservation canceled? Harold's working somewhere else this week. What about the couple in 6? Alive. The water pressure? Marlene. What? If you call again, I'm changing one lock. Marlene hung up. She and Denise ate seafood near the river, walked until their feet hurt, and sat in a square shaded by live oaks. Denise asked what Glenn would have thought of the city. Marlene said he would have complained about parking, and then told everyone he had discovered the place. When they returned, the motel was still standing. Alma had moved the coffee cups to a different shelf. Marlene moved them back, waited 10 minutes, and moved them where Alma had put them. In September, Cal installed the last 2 desks. One went into room 17. The other replaced the commercial desk in room 16, which Marlene sold online for $60 after disclosing the corrected wobble. Cal stayed for coffee in the communal kitchen. A utility worker asked if he owned the motel with Marlene. No, Cal said. The answer came easily enough that Marlene looked at him. She owns it, he added. I build things she complains about. The utility worker nodded. Family business. Cal glanced at Marlene before answering. Some parts. He did not ask to manage the Juniper. He did not decide he had always loved motel work. He built good desks, fixed a cabinet hinge when he noticed it loose, and sent invoices like any other contractor. When Marlene paid him, she did not add extra money in the envelope. The 2nd anniversary of Glenn's funeral arrived on a clear October day. Denise found the sign from the year before, folded behind the office brochures. Supper at 6. All adult guests. Welcome. No speeches. She smoothed it on the counter. Again? Marlene looked at the reservation board. 11 rooms were occupied. 2 guests worked nights. One had already announced that he disliked casseroles on religious grounds. Put it in the kitchen this time. Alma made chicken. Darius brought a pot of beans and claimed not to know they contained enough pepper to remove paint. Harold arrived with another grocery store pie. You baked this one too? Marlene asked. Family recipe. Your family's name is printed on the box. Protects it from theft. Cal came late carrying a covered dish of macaroni and cheese. You cook now? Denise asked. I bought it from Harlan's cafeteria. Then why is it in your dish? I understand presentation. They filled both kitchen tables. Guests drifted in and out, some staying for a plate, others only long enough to say thank you before leaving for work. No one made a speech. Glenn's absence sat with Marlene without pressing against her. She could remember his hands carving turkey, his irritated voice beneath the motel awning, the way he polished the lobby counter before guests arrived. She could also remember the roof he postponed, the receipts in drawers, and the years he let her work disappear beneath his stories. Love held all of it now. It no longer required her to lie. After the guests finished, Alma began stacking plates. Darius carried chairs back to their places. Denise wrapped leftovers. Cal stood at the sink with his sleeves rolled up, washing dishes badly. You're leaving grease on that pan, Marlene said. He held it toward the light. Where? Everywhere. Would you like to wash it? No, then lower your standards. Alma laughed from the table. The office bell rang. Marlene looked through the kitchen doorway. A woman stood outside the lobby carrying a small suitcase. She appeared to be in her 60s and tired from driving. I'll get it, Denise said. Marlene started to hand her the master key, then paused. Denise waited without reaching. Room 14 is ready, Marlene said. Extra towels in the cabinet. Denise took the key. Anything else? Ask how long she's staying before quoting the weekly rate. I know. You asked. Denise went to the lobby. Cal dried the pan and placed it on the rack. You gave her the master? For 10 minutes. You trust her? Usually. He smiled, then wiped down the counter without being told. The woman took room 14 for one night. Denise returned the master key and placed it in Marlene's hand. "Coffee at 5:30?" she asked. "Timer's set. Water, new line, heat, works." Denise nodded toward the lobby. She asked if it's quiet. "What did you tell her?" "That depends on Harold." "From the kitchen," Harold objected. The supper ended slowly. Darius and Alma left together, arguing over who had made the beans too hot. Harold carried the remaining pie to room 11. Cal loaded the empty macaroni dish into his van. At the office door, Denise put on her coat. "Thanksgiving at my house?" she asked. "If you still put apples in the stuffing, I make no promises. You ate 2 servings. I was mourning. You've used that excuse for 2 years. I'm older. I have a limited supply." Denise hugged her. She no longer held on too long to check whether Marlene was steady. Cal waited beside his van. "You need help locking up?" he asked. "No? All right." He did not look disappointed by the answer. Marlene watched their vehicles leave. The vacancy sign glowed above the lot, though only 3 rooms remained empty. In the communal kitchen, someone had labeled half a lemon with a name and date. Alma's green walls had survived the spaghetti. Marlene turned off the kitchen lights and carried Glenn's cap to the apartment. She placed it beside the folded lake map, not hidden and not in the way. The office bell rang again. A guest stood at the counter in slippers, saying the television in room 5 had lost its picture. Marlene checked the clock. 10:40. She could call Alma. Darius would answer if the outlet had failed. Cal knew how the wall mount worked. Denise would drive back if Marlene said she needed her. She did not need to prove she could handle it alone. Tonight, she wanted to. Marlene took the new master key from her pocket and came around the counter. "Show me what it's doing," she said. She followed the guest outside, locked the office behind her, and walked beneath the steady red light toward room 5.